Introduction. The Heresy of Pursuit, the Sweat of the Prey. Imagine the great lie upon which the human biomass has built its mediocre empires of sand. From the first millisecond, your biological brain was aware of the outside world. The 3D matrix injected you with the most destructive and castrating dogma of linear physics, the doctrine of pursuit. They taught you that ambition is measured in liters of sweat. They have indoctrinated you to believe that if you desire a corporate empire, a titanium alliance, or absolute dominance over your ecosystem, you must go out and hunt it. They tell you that you must run, pressure, obsess, and drown in kinetic effort until matter yields to your exhaustion. You are a slave to the struggle of the chase. We call this thermodynamic aberration the heresy of pursuit, and we are going to annihilate it at this precise moment with the coldness of quantum mechanics. Analyze the physics of the hunt with aseptic indifference. When you pursue an objective on the ashboard, what are you communicating at an electromagnetic level? It is a signal. You are emitting an unnegotiable declaration of scarcity. In the language of the unified field, running after something is the empirical and absolute confirmation that you do not have it. Obsession is not a demonstration of power. It is a thermal hemorrhage. When you need to close a deal with desperation, you bleed your own voltage. When you compulsively check your bank account or harass probability to collapse in your favor, you are generating a scorching friction in your auric field. That friction emits residual heat that the local universe interprets as weakness. And in the physics of the vacuum, sweat is the unmistakable smell of the prey. You smell like lack. Conscious matter, which composes money, opportunities, and territory, is mathematically allergic to desperation. When you pounce on it with the open jaws of the hungry ego, matter polarizes and moves away from you at the exact same speed at which you pursue it. This is why the biomass lives exhausted. They are skeletal greyhounds. They run after a holographic hare they can never reach, because it is their own kinetic speed that pushes the objective out of reach. They believe they are demonstrating ambition, when in reality they are demonstrating their submission to lack. They are fueling the distance. The more they run, the further the target recedes. The quantum operator repudiates the hunt with geometric arrogance. To dominate three-dimensional matter, you have to commit the most counterintuitive and brutal act of your evolution. You have to stop. You have to learn to turn your back on your own empire. You must master the art of the unshakable axis in the center of the void. Welcome to the paradox of the blind observer. The universe is a hyper-dense mirror that flees in terror from those who harass it, but surrenders unconditionally to those organisms that possess the tactical cruelty of not needing it. You have to rip obsession from your nervous system. You have to transmute the anxiety of the search. Transmute it into the crushing gravity of one who already possesses the source code. Stop running after electrons, anchor your lead boots in the singularity, cool your reactor until you reach zero friction, and observe how the ashboard is forced to collapse upon your chest. The result is not a trophy to be won, but a shadow of your weight. Chapter 1. Thermodynamics of Desire, the Friction Leak. The Pathology of Desire, the Thermal Diagnosis. To master the paradox of the blind observer, you must first subject your own psychology to the scalpel of pure physics. The human biomass has been programmed by cheap literature and false motivation to worship desire. They have told you that wanting something with all your might is the first step to obtaining it. They have taught you to visualize your desire, to obsess over it, to let it take away your sleep, and to burn to achieve it. That is the advice of slaves to keep each other in slavery. Analyze desire under the relentless lens of quantum thermodynamics. What exactly is desire? Desire is not a creative force. Desire is the explicit and desperate recognition of a lack. When you desire $1 million or the territorial dominance of your market, what your nervous system is screaming to the unified field is, "I do not have it. I am empty. I am insufficient without this piece of matter." You are broadcasting lack. Desire is the programming code of poverty. It is a massive thermal leak. Imagine the core of your consciousness as a nuclear reactor. For the reactor to collapse the probability wave and materialize an empire on the ashboard, the energy inside must be hyper-compressed, dense, gelid, and contained. You need pressure. But when you introduce the obsession of desire, you open a fissure in the reactor. Your voltage escapes in the form of useless steam. You empty yourself by projecting your energy toward an imaginary future where you finally possess the object of your ambition. While you desire, you bleed electromagnetically in the present. The friction of scarcity, residual heat. In classical mechanics, when two surfaces rub against each other with resistance, they generate friction, and friction manifests as heat. That heat is wasted energy, pure entropy. In the mechanics of manifestation, need is the most destructive friction force in the universe. It creates a barrier of noise. Look at yourself when you are obsessed with a 3D result. Observe the corporate biomass when they try to force the signing of a contract they need to pay their debts or save their prestige. Their minds race. Their pulse increases. They secrete cortisol. They are generating a scorching residual heat. The unified field reads that heat as low vibration static. Conscious matter, capital, opportunities, the submission of the competition is mathematically allergic to that heat. When you approach the universe vibrating in the frequency of need, your auric field is so hot and chaotic that you burn the probabilities. You burn the quantum probabilities before they can solidify. Why do the rich get richer without effort and the desperate keep failing? Because the millionaire who invests does not need the investment to work to eat. He operates with zero friction. The slave invests his last savings sweating blood. He prays for a miracle, and that same electromagnetic sweat calcines the seed of his success. The need annihilates the work. To the field, your desperation is an alarm that says the result is not yet yours. The universe only delivers to the hand that is already closed, never to the hand that is open and trembling. Inverse magnetism, the biology of repulsion. If you continue to operate under the heresy of pursuit, you will activate a relentless physical phenomenon on the ashboard, inverse magnetism. Imagine two polarized magnets. If you try to force the positive pole against the positive pole, they repel. The harder you push, the more violent the repulsion. The three-dimensional universe operates with the same magnetic cruelty. Everything you pursue with desperation polarizes against you. When you run towards success because you believe success will grant you the sovereignty you lack, success scans you, detects your lack of internal mass, and flees. Observe market dynamics. The client always flees from the desperate salesperson who needs the commission. The investor always withdraws his capital from the anxious founder who sweats in the presentation. Conscious matter categorically refuses to be possessed by an organism vibrating in lack. The universe refuses to give the empire to a king who cries. If you are pursuing, you are pushing the object of your desire out of your own orbit. You are using your own kinetic energy to push the goal away. You are the architect of your own thermodynamic frustration. You are the wall. Cooling the reactor, quantum superconductivity. To stop this hemorrhage, you must apply a brutal cooling protocol on your own nervous system. You must murder obsessive desire and replace it with ballistic certainty. What is the thermodynamic difference between desire and certainty? Desire says, I hope it happens. I need it. I will fight for it. Desire is hot, humid, and noisy. Certainty says, it is mine. It is gelid, aseptic, and silent. You have to transmute your biology to reach the state of quantum superconductivity. In materials physics, a superconductor is an element cooled nearly to absolute zero. In that state, friction vanishes. Resistance disappears completely, allowing currents of astronomical voltage to flow without losing a single electron of energy. Imagine applying absolute zero to your corporate or territorial ambition. Withdraw all emotion, all hope, and all fear of failure. Look at it as a simple mathematical collapse. You do not desire the competition to surrender. You simply emit the code that suffocates them and forget the matter. You do not desire to be a millionaire. You simply structure the topography of your reality so that capital has no other physical option but to orbit around you. You are the center. By cooling your ego, you eradicate resistance. You become a superconductor through which the will of point zero flows toward matter without generating a single spark of emotional friction. Your result becomes a thermodynamic inevitability rather than a desperate hope. Silence is your new conductor. The intellect trap, murdering urgency. The most stubborn parasite that will try to keep the friction turned on in your system is your own mammalian intellect and its addiction to urgency. The human biomass lives under the tyranny of the clock. They believe time is running out, that they must achieve goals before a certain age or market change. Urgency is the preferred fuel of scarcity. When you operate with urgency, you are telling the unified field that you do not control time, but that time controls you. You are admitting your subordination to the gears of Chronos. The quantum operator must strangle urgency with aseptic indifference. Imagine standing in the middle of a holographic ultimatum. The ashboard demands a quick decision, threatening that you will lose the opportunity. Feel the blood try to rise to your head. Stop the flow, breathe lead, declare the state of sovereign immobility. A monarch is never in a hurry. The monarch knows the local universe is generated in real time from his own chest. If the market demands speed from hysteria, you respond with a gelid and lethal slowness. By refusing to operate with urgency, you take away the matrix's whip. The opportunity is not lost, it stays frozen. It stays frozen, waiting patiently for you from your zero friction to decide if you deign to assimilate it or discard it. You are the one who dictates the pace of the render. Speed without urgency is power. Speed with haste is weakness. Be the mountain that watches the clouds race by. Ballistic detachment, amputating the need. To definitively seal the friction leak, you must execute an electromagnetic surgery on your own attachments. You must apply ballistic detachment. False spirituality tells you that detaching is wanting nothing and living under a bridge. That is the morality of the defeated. Your detachment is aggressive. Ballistic detachment consists of aiming for the absolute monopoly of the 3D world, demanding the maximum quota of power, and simultaneously not needing a single atom of that power to keep your internal hyperdensity intact. Imagine holding your greatest goal in the palm of your consciousness. Look at that pharaonic project, that overflowing bank account. Look at it fixedly. Now, inject yourself with the poison of indifference. Declare in the darkness of your marrow, I am going to collapse this because it is my geometric whim. But if it never manifests, my frequency will not descend. My immobility is absolute with it, or without it. This declaration is an atomic bomb against the matrix. When the universe discovers that it is mathematically indifferent to you whether you win or lose, the universe enters thermodynamic panic. The ashboard only has power if you have something to lose. If you extirpate the fear of loss by amputating need, the matrix is left without tools to manipulate you. You become an unanchored force, a player who does not value the chips. Ironically, this is the exact moment when the chips begin to pile up at your feet, drawn by your lack of resistance. The attracting void, the power of absolute immobility. Look at yourself in the obsidian operating room. You have stopped the thermal hemorrhage. You no longer pursue. You no longer sweat. You no longer emit the frequency of scarcity or the static of urgency. You have cooled your reactor to absolute zero and amputated need from your source code. What occurs in the millisecond when friction disappears completely? The physics of the attracting void occurs. By withdrawing your obsessive pursuit of the external environment, you have generated a crater of hyperdensity in the center of your chest. You have accumulated all that wasted kinetic energy. You have transmuted it into pure gravitational mass. You have become immensely heavy at an electromagnetic level. You are no longer the greyhound chasing the hare. You have become the core of a black hole. Feel the black magic of this immobility. By not emitting need, you do not polarize matter against you. On the contrary, the conscious matter of the 3D board, which previously fled your desperation, now detects your perfect void. And as the universe abhors a vacuum, it is forced to fill it. Circumstances begin to rush toward you. Offers arrive without you seeking them. Competitors surrender without you fighting. The universe delivers exactly what you asked for, not because you earned it with slave effort, but because your absolute immobility generated a vacuum pressure so unbearable that the matrix had no choice but to collapse the wave upon your coordinates. You have crossed the first threshold of the paradox. The mastery of non-action. To truly solidify the attracting void, you must master the silence of non-action. This is not laziness, it is the tactical withdrawal of the predator. When you stop doing in the 3D sense, stop calling, stop pushing, stop worrying, you are actually increasing your quantum pressure. Every minute of silence is a volt. Imagine your empire is a massive structure currently being built by the hidden hands of the field. Every time you interfere with 3D effort, you trip those hands. You slow the process. By standing still, you allow the high-speed rendering of the universe to proceed without the lag of your biological doubt. The biomass thinks you have given up. They see your inactivity and predict your failure. Let them. Their judgment is a low-frequency noise that cannot penetrate your Faraday cage. While they talk, you are condensing the dark matter of your future monopoly. Your silence is the forge of your sovereignty. The 33-node antenna in your spine is now vibrating at a frequency that has no name in the human language. It is the frequency of the already is. You are not waiting for the money to arrive. You are simply standing in the coordinate where the money already exists. The distance has been deleted. The exhaustless expansion of the void. A black hole does not grow by reaching out, it grows by pulling in. This is the secret of the endless empire. As you master the attracting void, you will notice that the scale of what you attract increases geometrically. You are no longer pulling in crumbs, you are pulling in entire sectors of reality. This is because your density is now so great that the local space-time of the ashboard is permanently curved toward your chest. You have become a geographical landmark of the spirit. Opportunities do not just happen, they are gravitationally compelled to appear in your presence. You are the destination. This expansion requires no calories. You do not feel tired after a day of attracting millions because you haven't moved. Your biology remains in a state of aseptic rest while your holographic clones execute the work in the 3D world. You are the monarch resting in the tent while the map is redrawn. The more you refuse to need, the more the matrix offers. It is a desperate attempt by the simulation to find your price, to find the hook that will make you blink. But as long as you remain a superconductor of indifference, the matrix will keep pouring its riches into your void. You are the bottomless cup. The final sterilization of urgency. Before you move to the next threshold, you must ensure that the last embers of urgency are extinguished. Urgency is the shadow of death. If you feel you must achieve something before you die or before the year ends, you are still a prisoner of the clock. You must view time as a plastic material. In the singularity, 1,000 years and a single millisecond are the same. When you possess this perspective, your actions become truly lethal. You move with the deliberate slowness of a god. This slowness is terrifying to your competitors because they cannot predict your timing. You move outside the rhythm. By being the master of your own when, you become the master of their now. You can wait out any market crash, any corporate siege, or any personal crisis. You are the observer who does not blink, and therefore the system cannot reset while you are watching. You have frozen the board in your favor. The first umbral is conquered. You have cooled the desire and created the void. But the matrix has one more defense, the delay. It will make the results take time to appear, just to see if you panic and start pursuing again. Prepare for the next surgery. You must learn to ignore the clock entirely. Chapter 2. The Zeno effect of anxiety, freezing scarcity. The physics of the gaze, the eye that destroys. To annihilate this sabotage, you must assimilate one of the most brutal and counterintuitive theorems of theoretical quantum physics, the quantum Zeno effect. In particle mechanics, physicists discovered a terrifying anomaly. If you take an unstable quantum system and observe it continuously, the system freezes. The particle, subjected to the uninterrupted pressure of measurement, is rendered incapable of mutating. The simple gaze of the observer paralyzes the evolution of matter. The lethal operator understands that this microscopic principle governs the ashboard on a macroscopic scale. What does the human biomass do when it decrees a goal? When they launch a corporate project or attempt to collapse a financial reality, they execute the effort, and immediately after, They begin to compulsively observe the environment, looking for proof that it is working. They check their bank account 10 times a day. They refresh the email inbox, waiting for the contract. They scan the faces of their clients, looking for approval. By doing this, they are applying the Zeno effect to their own lack. They are freezing the matrix in the exact state of not having it. Analyze this compulsive verification with aseptic indifference. From what thermodynamic state do you verify if a miracle has already occurred? You verify it from doubt, and doubt is the electromagnetic confirmation of fear. If you were the absolute monarch of the ecosystem, if you had the ballistic certainty that conscious matter has already obeyed your sub-base order, would you be refreshing your phone screen every 5 minutes with sweaty hands? Of course not. The monarch issues the order and goes to sleep, because the execution of the order is a consumed fact by simple gravitational weight. Every time you check the outside world looking for results, you are sending a disgusting and pleading signal to the unified field. I do not trust my own collapse. Please, universe, give me a sign. The universe abhors pleading. When you peek at your bank account from anxiety, your laser of consciousness hits the holographic screen and freezes the electrons in the configuration of scarcity. You are using your immense power as a creator to photograph nothingness and fix it in the fabric of space-time. The darkroom of creation, thermodynamic gestation. To stifle this pathology, you must understand that the local universe operates under the laws of analog photography. Imagine the developing process. You have a virgin photographic paper, the unified field of pure probability. You project the light through the negative, your sub-base frequency injecting the order. Now that paper must be submerged in the developer chemicals and must remain in absolute darkness for the latent image to materialize and become permanent. What happens if, in the middle of the developing process, the biological photographer becomes desperate and turns on the white light of the darkroom to see how it's going? The white light of his anxiety hits the paper and burns it completely. The image is destroyed. The photo comes out black. The process is aborted due to overexposure. In the quantum mechanics of your empire, darkness is the equivalent of not knowing, of the intellect's renunciation of controlling the linear sequence of events. When you issue an order of collapse to the ashboard, the universe begins to move millions of variables, contracts, and synchronicities in the shadows. It is a process of hyperdensity gestation. If you interfere, if you turn on the light of three-dimensional doubt demanding to see how the process is going, you overexpose the film. Tactical blindness, amputating the ego's eyes. The cure for the Zeno effect of anxiety is the relentless execution of tactical blindness. It is not about ignorance. Ignorance is for the biomass that does not want to see danger. Tactical blindness is a tool of psychological warfare against your own mammalian brain. It is the cold, deliberate decision to refuse to look for proof. Imagine launching the expansion pulse to dominate a new market territory. Once the wave has been emitted from the 0 point of your marrow, you turn around. You literally turn your back on the result. You install a titanium blocker in your nervous system. If your weak intellect whispers, check the sales stats, you stifle it. You physically forbid yourself from looking. If you look, you break the geometric tension. This voluntary blindness is the most aggressive and psychopathic act of faith that exists. It is not the faith of religious people. It is the faith of applied thermodynamics. It is knowing that digging up the seed every day is how you kill it. The test of silence, the abyss of transition. When you apply tactical blindness and stop harassing the matrix, you will enter the most terrifying phase for the slave organism, the abyss of transition. You have emitted the hyperdense order, but the old hologram of scarcity still takes time to disintegrate, because three-dimensional matter is dense and slow. During this lapse, the ashboard will present you with a deafening silence. Nothing will seem to move. The account will remain empty. The biomass, facing this silence, panics and aborts the mission. They believe silence means a no from the universe. The lethal operator knows silence is the sound of cosmic gears taking momentum. Imagine this silence as the acoustic vacuum that precedes the shockwave of a thermonuclear explosion. The flash already occurred, your order, but the destructive sound, physical manifestation, is still traveling. If you get scared and change the order, you will be in the wrong place when the wave of liquid gold hits. Hold tactical blindness during the silence. Bite the bullet. Do not ask for signs. Do not seek validation in astrology or gurus. If you ask for an external sign to confirm you are on the right track, you are admitting that you are not the creator of the track. Sustain the abyss with a flat heart rate. Murdering the witness, disintegrating duality. For the Zeno effect to be neutralized, you must understand the attempt to be the creator and the witness at the same time. In the duality of slaves, there is an entity that does and another that observes. You emit the order, but then you step back and become the anxious witness waiting for the play to start. This division is a crack in your hyperdensity. You cannot be on stage collapsing matter and simultaneously sitting in the audience evaluating the performance. You have to murder the witness. Imagine taking that you that evaluates, that judges speed, and extirpating it with the silent guillotine. When the witness dies, the timeline disappears. You are no longer waiting for a future event to occur, because the concept of waiting requires an observer separate from the event. By murdering the witness, you fuse irrevocably with the order. You are no longer waiting to be a millionaire, you are the frequency itself. The deaf and blind creator, lethal execution. Look at yourself in the center of the ecosystem, practicing the paradox of the blind observer. You no longer sweat. You no longer check the locks of the universe. You have learned to emit the most destructive sub-base order, and in the next nanosecond, amputate all conscious interest in it. You move like a cruise missile. You do not verify if the matrix obeys you, because verifying is an insult to your own gravity. By removing your eyes from the need, you release immense atmospheric pressure from the shoulders of conscious matter. The probability, previously frozen by the laser of your fear, thaws instantly. You have crossed the second threshold of the paradox. You have stifled doubt and frozen your own lack, allowing probability to breathe. But the biological ego will try to find another way to cling to control. If you do not allow it to see the final goal, it will try to micromanage the path. It will try to dictate the hows. The necrosis of expectation. Expectation is a parasite that feeds on the voltage of your intent. When you expect something to happen, you are reinforcing the fact that it is currently absent. Expectation creates a temporal distance, a gap in the fabric of the now, where the virus of anxiety breeds. The operator does not expect, the operator occupies. You must occupy the state of the result so thoroughly that there is no room left for the expectation of its arrival. If you are sitting in the vibration of the finished empire, the concept of arrival becomes obsolete. The empire is not coming. It is being radiated from your core. Expectation is the smell of a slave's hope. The sterilization of the future. To the biomass, the future is a scary place full of variables they cannot control. To the operator, the future is simply a storage room for collapsed waves. By applying the Zeno effect in reverse, you must realize that looking at the future with worry is what actually creates the obstacles you fear. You must sterilize your concept of the future. It is not a place you are going to, it is a projection you are casting. If you cast a projection tainted with the need for confirmation, you are polluting the very air you are about to breathe. Keep the future sterile by keeping your gaze away from the intermediate steps. The armor of indifference. Indifference is not apathy. It is the highest form of concentration. It is being so focused on the internal resonance of your victory that the external reality becomes a blurred background. This armor protects you from the friction of the world. When people tell you it's impossible, your indifference makes their words pass through you. If you react to the external world, you are giving it authority. If you look at the lack of sales and feel a sting of fear, you have just handed your crown to the holographic display. Indifference is the shield that maintains the darkroom's integrity. It is the refusal to allow external light to hit your sensitive internal film. The algorithm of the void. The universe functions on a specific algorithm. It provides whatever matches your state of being. If your state of being is searching, the universe will provide more reasons to search. If your state is verifying, the universe will provide more things that need verification. It is a perfect, cold mathematical mirror. To break the loop, you must provide a state of possession. Possession requires no eyes. You don't need to look at your hand to know you have fingers. That level of normalized possession is what kills the Zeno effect. You must normalize your future empire until the thought of checking on it feels as redundant as checking if you exist. The gravitational well of the present. Anxiety is a leakage of energy toward a non-existent point in time. It is a hemorrhage of power. The Zeno effect happens because your energy is scattered across the timeline. By pulling all your focus into the hyperdense present, you create a gravitational well so strong that the future result has no choice but to fall into it. Think of your consciousness as a massive star. If that star is fragmented, its gravity is weak. If it is condensed into a single point, the singularity of your intent, it bends space-time. The result you want is literally pulled toward you because you have made the now the only place where energy is allowed to exist. The asymptotic manifestation. There is a moment in the process where the result is so close it feels like it's touching you, yet it remains invisible. This is the asymptotic curve. The ego will scream at this point. It will tell you that you've been tricked. It will demand a sign. This is the final test of the darkroom. The darkness is thickest just before the image appears. If you blink now, you lose months of gestation. You must become a statue of obsidian, motionless, unblinking, blind to the three-dimensional delay. Your only job is to maintain the internal pressure. The more the external world remains silent, the more you must increase the internal voltage of your certainty. The predator's patience. A predator does not pace back and forth with anxiety while waiting for the prey to enter the kill zone. The predator becomes part of the landscape. It becomes the silence. Its heart rate slows down. It is so certain of the kill that it doesn't need to hope for it. It is simply waiting for the geometric alignment of the moment. You are the predator of your own destiny. The market, the capital, the sovereignty, these are your prey. They are already caught in the gravity of your frequency anchor. The only thing that can save them is your impatience. If you jump too soon because you needed to see, you alert the matrix and the opportunity vanishes. The liquidation of hope. Hope is the most dangerous drug on the ashboard. Hope implies a lack of power. You hope for things you cannot guarantee. The operator liquidates hope and replaces it with command. You do not hope your business succeeds. You have commanded its success and then forgotten about it. When you kill hope, you kill the root of the Zeno effect. Without hope, there is no fear of disappointment. Without fear of disappointment, there is no need to check the bank account. You become a cold technician of reality. You have set the machine in motion, and you know the machine cannot fail because you are the one who built the laws. The transparency of the hologram. As you master tactical blindness, the physical world begins to lose its solidity. You start to see it for what it is, a slow, lagging projection of your past thoughts. Why would you look at a movie that was filmed 6 months ago to see what you are thinking today? That is what checking the bank account is. The current bank balance is a ghost of your old frequency. Looking at it is a form of necromancy. You are trying to find life in a dead image. The operator looks only at the internal projector. If the projector is set to empire, the screen will eventually have no choice but to show the empire. The delay is irrelevant. The frequency of completion. Everything in the universe has a signature. The frequency of desire is sharp, jagged, and leaky. The frequency of completion is heavy, smooth, and silent. You must tune your nervous system to the frequency of completion. This is a state where there are no questions left to ask and no proofs left to find. Completion is a state of absolute rest within total movement. In this state, the Zeno effect cannot exist because there is no measurement taking place. There is only being. You are the empire. You are the capital. You are the victory. And since you are it, the act of looking for it would be a mathematical absurdity. The threshold of the third chapter. You have learned to silence the gaze that freezes. You have learned to inhabit the darkroom of the abyss. Your field is now primed. The what is anchored. The when is irrelevant. But the mind, desperate to find a foothold, will now turn to the how. It will try to plan the route, to build the bridge, to micromanage the universe. It will try to tell you that you need a strategy, a step-by-step guide, a logical path. This is the next virus. To achieve the truly impossible, you must not only be blind to the evidence, but also deaf to the process. You must learn to murder the how as ruthlessly as you murdered the verification. Prepare to enter the realm of the uncertainty principle. Prepare to understand why the greatest moves on the tablero de ceniza are those that have no logical explanation and no visible bridge. The vacuum is calling, and it requires you to let go of the steering wheel entirely. The leap is only possible if you stop looking for the ground. Chapter 3. The Uncertainty Principle, Murdering the How. The virus of the linear sequence, the slave's consolation. If you do not allow the human biomass to obsess over the what, the final result, it will desperately seek to cling to the how, the logistical process. The biomass loves plans. They adore step-by-step tutorials, roadmaps, and 5-year strategies. When a slave decides they want to build a corporate empire, their first biological instinct is to sit down and write the how they will achieve it. They design a strict linear sequence. First, I will save this capital, then I will hire this person, then I will launch this product on such a date, and if this works, then I will get this result. Analyze this behavior with the aseptic indifference of zero-point mechanics. The step-by-step plan is a psychological pacifier. It is a cheap sedative the biomass consumes to calm the terror produced by the immensity of the unified field. They believe that if they can chain a series of logical causes and effects, they will control their destiny. This is the heresy of the linear sequence. It is trying to domesticate a black hole with a plastic ruler. To annihilate this intellectual pathology, the quantum operator must integrate the Heisenberg uncertainty principle into their nervous system. In quantum physics, Heisenberg mathematically proved that it is impossible to know simultaneously. It is impossible to know with absolute precision both the position and the momentum, the velocity and trajectory of a subatomic particle. The more accurate your measurement of where the particle is, the more uncertain the information about how it moves or where it goes becomes. The nature of the universe demands that one of the two variables remains. One variable must remain in a state of infinite probability. Applied to the thermodynamics of the ashboard, this principle is a weapon of mass destruction against your own logistical anxiety. In the manifestation of hyperdensity, the what, your goal, the million-dollar collapse, sovereignty, is the position. The how is the momentum. The how, the route, the specific clients, the delivery method, is the momentum. By thermodynamic law, you cannot fix both variables without generating a catastrophic friction that destroys the collapse. If you nail your sub-base frequency into the absolute certainty of the final result, the what, you must mandatorily surrender the trajectory. You must deliver the how to the total uncertainty of the void. If you try to dictate the result and also dictate the exact path by which that result must arrive, you collapse the wave into a state of extremely high resistance, paralyzing conscious matter. The universe does not tolerate micromanagement. It demands an infinite margin of maneuver. The universe requires maneuverability in the darkness to assemble the miracle. To let go of the how, you must understand the extreme mathematical limitation of your human intellect. The biological brain is a recycling machine. It can only process data from the past. When your intellect tries to design a plan, it uses only what it knows. It uses your current education, current contacts, the state of your bank account, and three-dimensional market statistics. It combines these rusted data points and tries to project them into the future. That brain is a wooden abacus. The unified field, conversely, is a quantum supercomputer of infinite capacity processing trillions of variables. It knows collapse routes, synchronicities, algorithms, and human connections that your intellect could never even imagine. Imagine demanding a $10 million injection from the ashboard, but from your anxiety, you demand it arrive exclusively through the sale of a specific product in your current business, because that is the only route. That is the only logical route your biological abacus can comprehend. You have just strangled omnipotence. By demanding the how, you have closed billions of probabilistic doors. Perhaps the zero-friction route was meeting an investor at an airport who would buy your entire company, or a law changing tomorrow that multiplies your assets. But because you obsessed over the linear route of your business plan, you forced matter to try to pass through the eye of a needle, generating scorching friction, sweat, kinetic effort, and probably failure. Dictating the how is not an act of leadership. It is an act of intellectual arrogance and absolute distrust in your own voltage. Murdering causality. The quantum leap has no bridge. The lethal operator who masters the paradox of the blind observer must execute the murder of Newtonian causality. Slave science states that to go from point A, poverty, to point C, absolute sovereignty, you must necessarily pass through point B, the 10-year process of effort, blood, tears, and gradual accumulation. They demand a bridge. In quantum mechanics, electrons do not walk across bridges. When an electron absorbs enough energy, photons, it performs a quantum leap. It disappears instantaneously from its lower orbit and materializes, in zero Planck time, in a higher orbit. It does not cross the intermediate space. There is no measurable trajectory or visible how. To have your empire materialize through a quantum leap, you must destroy your need for a logical bridge. Imagine collapsing the image of your definitive victory in the singularity of your chest. Now, look at the immense abyss of improbability that separates your current reality from that collapse. The biomass would look and panic. It's impossible. I don't have the resources. I don't know how. The economy is bad. Stifle that voice with aseptic indifference. Not knowing how is not an obstacle. It is the indispensable technical requirement for higher physics to operate. You must inhabit the abyss without building bridges. If you refuse to move a finger to force logistics. If you refuse to sweat trying to guess the path, you force the geometric tension of the matrix to curve space-time. Since the final result is already an electromagnetic fact anchored in your Zeno effect, and you refuse to build the gradual bridge, the matrix has no choice but to collapse the distance to zero, rendering the quantum leap. The surrender of the CEO, the dictator of the what? This leads us to a radical alteration of your role on the business board. You must adopt the stance of the dictator of the what. In a giant three-dimensional corporation, the chief executive officer, CEO, does not go down to the machine room to explain to the technician how to tighten the bolts on a server. The CEO sits in the boardroom and dictates a decree. I want the system to process double the data by Friday. The CEO has no idea what programming language will be used, nor how many cables will be connected. That how is below their operating density. Their only job is to hold the innegotiability of the mandate and refuse excuses. You are the CEO of your reality, and the unified field is your unlimited logistical team. Imagine injecting the order into your reactor. Acquisition of the European market, or multiplication of net capital by 100. Once the order is sealed with zero friction, you execute the tactical surrender. You renounce the management of the process in an aseptic and total way. You hand over the how to dark matter. When your mind assaults you at 3 in the morning screaming, "But we don't have money for that expansion. We don't know anyone there," you respond with the coldness of an obsidian guillotine. That is not my department. This is true faith. It is not believing in winged beings or external entities. It is a military discipline of quantum delegation. It is knowing that your voltage level is too high to get your hands dirty, putting the three-dimensional puzzle together. You dictate the image on the box, and the physics of the void assembles the pieces. The latency of surprise, manifestation from the blind spot. By murdering the how, you must be prepared to assimilate the phenomenon of the latency of surprise. Since the universe uses the zero friction route, and that route is usually completely outside your limited range of biological vision, quantum collapses never arrive through the front door you were expecting. If you obsess over money coming through a specific client, you not only paralyze the operation via the Zeno effect of anxiety, but you block all other financial arteries of the universe. The paradox of the blind observer dictates that the universe can only deliver matter when your gaze is diverted. The most colossal manifestations, the most brutal financial strokes of luck, and the most lethal territorial alliances always enter through the blind spot of your radar. They arrive on an ordinary Tuesday, through a phone call you didn't expect, from a person you didn't consider important, or as a consequence of a failure. That is why obsessing over the how is so destructive. It makes you stare fixedly north, waiting for the train, while the universe tries to drop a shipment of gold in the south. Since you aren't looking south, and you are tense and closed, you reject the delivery. You must hold a defocused and icy peripheral vision. Delight in darkness, chewing uncertainty. The final phase of the annihilation of the how requires a psychopathic transmutation of your emotions toward uncertainty. The human biomass has a biological terror of uncertainty. Not knowing what will happen tomorrow generates panic attacks, insomnia, and ulcers. They prefer the security of a miserable salary over infinite freedom. The quantum operator does not just tolerate uncertainty, they devour it and delight in it. When you are immersed in logistical darkness, when you don't have the remotest idea how the universe will execute the impossible order you just gave, you must not feel fear. You must feel a thermal excitement. You must savor the lead of the abyss. Imagine yourself suspended in total ignorance of the process. Feel how the lack of data destroys your intellectual ego. Enjoy the collapse of your own logic. Instead of turning on the flashlight of compulsive thought, surrender to the absolute blackout. I don't know how this empire will collapse. I have no data, so victory is inevitable. In the moment you pronounce this truth from the hyperdensity of your core, the uncertainty principle becomes your greatest siege weapon. By emptying your mind of any survival strategy, by refusing to move the pieces by force, you unleash all the destructive and creative potential of the zero-point field. The universe shudders with reverent terror before a biological organism that refuses to plan its own success. Look at yourself in the center of your own geometric immobility. You have stopped chasing. You have stopped looking at the clock with anxiety. And now, you have murdered the route. You have burned the maps. You have dismissed the logical pilot and destroyed the steering wheel. You have accepted the free fall of superior thermodynamics. There are no steps to follow. There are no magic formulas. There is no 10-point tutorial for your sovereignty because any tutorial written by a human is contaminated with the limitation of the possible. You operate in the jurisdiction of the mathematically aberrant. You have emptied your holographic field of kinetic friction, of expectation of control, and of the need for comprehension. The space around you is pristine, dark, and lethally silent. It is exactly here where the paradox reverses and repulsion becomes attraction. The architecture of the void, sovereignty without permission. To sustain this state of aseptic suspension, the operator must recognize that any attempt to help the universe is an insult to its processing power. When you interfere with the logistics, you are essentially telling the unified field that its trillions of variables are insufficient and that your tiny, fear-based plan is superior. This interference creates a quantum noise that blurs the target. In the silence of the how, the signal remains pure. Think of the void not as an empty space, but as a pressurized chamber of infinite potential. The less you fill it with your pathetic human strategies, the more room there is for the manifestation to expand. The geometry of the impossible. Logic is a prison built by those who fear the dark. It is a set of rules designed to keep the biomass within the boundaries of the attainable. But for the quantum operator, the attainable is a stale crust of bread. We seek the aberrant, the statistical anomaly, the sudden wealth that defies market trends. This requires a complete decoupling from the concept of earning or deserving. In the linear world, you earn a result through the how, through labor and time. In the point zero world, the result is a direct consequence of your frequency anchor. The universe does not reward hard work. It responds to gravitational density. The ritual of non-action. Non-action is not laziness. It is a high-voltage energetic strike. It is the refusal to dissipate your power in the horizontal plane of doing. Most people spend 99% of their energy doing and 1% being. The operator inverts this. You spend 100% of your energy being the result and 0% worrying about the bridge. When you sit in your office and the how begins to itch like a parasite, you must practice the art of the void. You look at the problem, you look at the lack of resources, and you smile with a predatory coldness. You acknowledge the void as the womb of your empire. The darker the path, the brighter the eventual collapse. The fallacy of the expert. Beware of the experts of the three-dimensional world. They are the high priests of the how. They will tell you that you need a marketing plan, a legal team, and a series of certifications. They are measuring the wind while you are controlling the weather. Their advice is based on the survival of the mediocre. An expert can only tell you how things were done yesterday. They cannot conceive of a salto quantico because their salary depends on the existence of the bridge. To follow their how is to sign a contract with slow decay. Disregard their metrics. Your metric is the internal stability of your own sub-bass frequency, the predatory nature of silence. The how is noisy. It involves meetings, emails, negotiations, and constant mental chatter. The what is silent. It is a monolithic command that echoes through the vacuum. When you stop talking about how you will succeed, you stop leaking energy. You become a black hole that starts pulling the necessary components toward its center. Silence is the medium through which the unified field communicates its instructions. These are not verbal instructions, they are impulses of zero friction. You will find yourself moving, not because you have a plan, but because the space-time around you has curved, making the next step the only logical path of least resistance. The financial singularity. In the realm of capital, the how is the ultimate trap. The biomass believes money flows from work to bank. The operator knows money is simply a densification of intent. If you demand a specific amount and then obsess over the how of the transaction, you are limiting the universe to the speed of the banking system. By releasing the how, you allow the financial singularity to occur. Money can arrive as a gift, a discovery, an error in your favor, or a sudden shift in global perception. When you stop looking at the how, you stop seeing price tags and start seeing energy flows. Your sovereignty is not a paycheck, it is an orbital shift. The collapse of the egoic pilot. The hardest part of murdering the how is the death of the ego. The ego wants the credit. It wants to be able to say, I did this through my cleverness and my hard work. To surrender the how is to admit that you, the biological person, are not the one doing the heavy lifting. This is an act of supreme humility, but within that humility lies the power of a god. When you step out of the way, you allow the infinite to work through you. You are no longer a person trying to make a deal, you are a localized point of the unified field expressing its abundance. The ego dies, but the emperor is born from its ashes. The zero-point strategy. If you must have a strategy, let it be this: anchor the result, breathe the victory, and treat the logistics as a joke played by a lesser deity. If a how presents itself, examine it for friction. If it feels like a struggle, it is a biological trap. If it feels like an inevitable slide down a mountain of ice, it is the field. Never defend your lack of a plan. When the world asks for your roadmap, show them your results. The results are the only language the biomass understands, yet they will never understand the silence from which those results emerged. You are the silent architect of a reality that others can only see once it is finished. The threshold of the void. As you move forward, the darkness will intensify. This is the sign that you are approaching the singularity. The closer you are to the manifestation, the less the how will make sense. The world will look chaotic, your plans will fall apart, and your old bridges will burn. Do not panic. The bridge is burning because you are flying. Embrace the vertigo. The absence of a how is the ultimate freedom. You are no longer bound by the laws of physics, the trends of the economy, or the limitations of your birth. You are an operator of the point zero, and the universe is your playground. The how is dead. Long live the sovereign. The final surrender. Total sovereignty is the result of total surrender. Not to a master, but to the mechanics of your own divinity. By murdering the how, you have removed the last obstacle between your command and its materialization. Now there is only the what, and the what is already here, waiting for you to stop looking for it. Relax your focus. Let the periphery take over. The world is rendering itself around your conviction. The empire is not being built, it is being revealed. You are the observer whose gaze creates worlds, and by choosing not to see the process, you have made the result inevitable. The third chapter is closed. The vacuum is full. Chapter 4. Black Hole Optics, Attraction versus Hunting. The biology of the hunter, the sweat of scarcity. The Matrix has taught you to idolize the figure of the wolf, the shark, the predator that chases its prey across the ashboard until it is exhausted. Analyze the biology of the hunt with aseptic indifference. What is a wolf chasing its prey? It is an organism investing immense amounts of caloric and kinetic energy in hopes of a return. The wolf has to run. Its muscles tear. Its heart beats at dangerous speeds. It suffers friction against the wind and the earth. And often, after all that thermodynamic wear, the prey escapes, and the wolf is left exhausted, hungry, and weaker than before. The corporate biomass operates exactly the same way. This is the hustle culture. They adore the entrepreneur who doesn't sleep, who makes 100 cold calls a day, who harasses clients, and who pursues opportunities until cellular exhaustion. The quantum operator repels hunting with a geometric disgust. Hunting is the thermodynamic admission that you and your goal are in two different coordinates. It is the admission that you are the slave tasked with closing that spatial gap through the sweat of your brow. In the physics of zero-friction manifestation, if you have to run after money, money perceives you as a sweaty beggar, and conscious matter never subordinates itself to a beggar. The thermodynamics of the singularity, passive gravity. To annihilate the hunter archetype, you must replace it with the most lethal, immovable, and absolute astrophysical phenomenon in the universe, the black hole. Contrast the pathetic hunt of the wolf with the majesty of a supermassive black hole. The black hole does not move from its coordinates. It does not chase the stars. It does not sweat, struggle, or waste kinetic energy trying to catch galaxies. Its power lies not in its capacity for movement, but in its hyperdensity. Because it possesses almost infinite mass compressed into a point of zero size, the singularity, the black hole curves the fabric of space-time around it so extremely. It creates a gravitational well from which nothing, not even light, can escape. Stars and planets simply fall toward its event horizon by the inescapable force of cosmic geometry. The lethal operator transmutes their ambition into passive gravity. Imagine being anchored on your obsidian throne. You have dictated the order. Instead of shooting off across the ashboard to make things happen, you execute kinetic collapse. You immobilize yourself. You accumulate ballistic certainty in the center of your chest. You feel your electromagnetic mass becoming infinitely heavy. You are no longer a mammal looking for capital. You have become a high-density body. By holding this state of heavy indifference, without emitting a single photon of need, the fabric of the three-dimensional market begins to curve toward your core. You do not hunt clients. Clients slide down the gravitational slope of your ecosystem. You do not pursue alliances. Alliances are forced to orbit you. The event horizon, the perimeter of inevitability. In astrophysics, the event horizon is the limit around a black hole where the required escape velocity exceeds the speed of light. Once an object crosses that imaginary line, its fate is mathematically sealed. It no longer matters how much it struggles or fires its engines. It will be devoured by the singularity. In the paradox of the blind observer, you forge a holographic event horizon around your corporate, financial, and territorial goals. How is this lethal perimeter established? It is forged through total ballistic detachment. Imagine a $1 million contract floating on your radar. The biomass hunter would run out and show desperation. The quantum operator sits in their immobility. They fix the intention. They observe the contract. And then they emit the vibration of aseptic indifference. If you sign it, the universe reorders under my rules. If you don't sign it, you do not exist, and my hyperdensity remains intact. The moment you stop caring, it crosses. In the millisecond you achieve that state, the contract crosses your event horizon. You have just snatched the power of thermal negotiation from the counterpart. The other person, or the market in general, will feel the suction of your vacuum. They will feel that if they do not adhere to your field, they will be lost in the abyss. Need changes sides instantly. Since you have emptied yourself of friction, the friction transfers to them. They begin to feel the need to associate with you, to deliver capital, or to sign the document. They have crossed the line, and their submission is already a geometric certainty. Spaghettification of the other's will, the structural tear. When an object falls into a black hole, the difference in gravitational force between the part closest to the core and the part farthest is so extreme that the object stretches in a violent process called spaghettification. The atomic structure of the object is torn apart before being assimilated by the singularity. This physical violence has an exact equivalent in the dynamics of zero friction power on the ashboard. As you sustain your black hole optics, you will observe how the will of your opponents, market resistance, and the arrogance of the biomass begin to suffer thermodynamic spaghettification. Imagine facing a massive corporate competitor or a financial crisis. The biomass would tell you to fight, to defend yourself. You do not move a millimeter. You absorb the impact with your Faraday cage. You sustain the aseptic silence and the sub-bass frequency of your territorial dominance. The opponent's resistance, colliding against an object of infinite hyperdensity that does not react, begins to tear. Their linear strategies stretch and deform under the pressure of your immobility. They try to pressure you, but since you offer no friction surface to push against, they lose balance and fall toward your center. You will see your competitors make absurd mistakes, destroying their own corporations from within. You will see those who denied you passage yield inexplicably, offering apologies and bending to your conditions. Their resistance has been shattered by pure magnetic pressure differences. You swallow them and assimilate their capital. The arrogance of immobility, zero caloric expenditure. The jump from hunter mentality to black hole thermodynamics requires you to cultivate the supreme arrogance of immobility. The biological ego feels useless and guilty if it is not doing something. The slave culture penalizes rest and glorifies being busy. They believe visible effort is the only honorable way. Uninstall that cheap code of honor. The universe is amoral. It only recognizes mass, density, and inertia. Imagine operating your corporate empire from icy immobility. You have teams, systems, and clones of your will deployed across the ashboard. They execute the three-dimensional movements. You, the monarch of the instant, do not touch the mud of daily management. You simply exist at the center of the equation, maintaining the gravitational mass of the system. If you agitate, if you get scared, if you sweat, the black hole loses its density and evaporates, releasing the captured galaxies. Your only and absolute thermodynamic job is never to lose aseptic composure. Immobility is not laziness. It is the violent containment of nuclear energy that would threaten to destroy the ecosystem if released without control. When the biomass asks how you built this without working, you look at them with tactical blindness. Stifling the friction of collapse, the black hole has no hope of devouring stars, nor does it have fear that they will escape. Hope and fear are kinetic emotions, exclusive to biological hunters who depend on the probability of the hunt to avoid starving. The black hole depends on nothing because it is the end of the route for all local matter. To anchor this optic in your cells, you must apply total suffocation to the friction of your own expectations. Every time you catch your mind wondering, will this goal come to me? You must cut that thought with the silent guillotine. If you ask that question, you are assuming the position of the separate hunter. Declare absolute collapse in the present nanosecond. There is no star out there that must be hunted. The conscious matter that composes your $1 million or your territorial victory is already orbiting millimeters from your event horizon. It is yours by quantum gravitation law. The only delay is your impatience. By stifling impatience, you turn off the last trace of fire in your auric field. The vacuum becomes total. And in that cold, dark vacuum, matter collapses toward the center without offering resistance. Look at yourself in your new astronomical configuration. You have eradicated the humiliation of pursuit. You have stopped wasting your cosmic energy running after rebellious electrons. You have amputated the scarcity mentality of the tired predator. You have transmuted into the hyper-dense singularity of your own holographic system. You are the immovable core, mute, blind, and deaf to the static of the world. The void of command, sucking the market dry. As you solidify your status as a gravitational singularity, you must realize that the vacuum you create is not empty. It is a hungry void of pure command. In the old world of the hunter, you had to pitch, sell, and convince. In the world of the black hole, the vacuum does the selling for you. When you enter a room and say nothing, when you refuse to justify your price or your presence, you create a psychological vacuum. The human mind cannot stand a vacuum. It rushes in to fill the space with its own projections of power and mystery. By doing nothing, you have forced the other party to provide the value. The nuclear core of certainty. Your certainty is the mass that drives the gravity. If your certainty flickers, your gravitational field weakens, and the objects orbiting your event horizon might spiral away. This is why the operator never seeks external confirmation. Seeking confirmation is like a star trying to find a mirror to see if it's still burning. You are the source. You are the mass. The market doesn't tell you what you are worth. You dictate the value by the sheer weight of your presence. If the market doesn't respond yet, it means you are still too light. You need more internal density, more silent certainty, more refusal to move. The spaghettification of time. Near a black hole, time behaves differently. It slows down. This is the temporal weapon of the operator. While the biomass is rushing, panicked by deadlines and quarterly reports, you operate in the time of Planck. You are outside the linear rush. This makes you unpredictable and terrifying to the system. By refusing to rush, you force the world to slow down to your pace. You will notice that deadlines start to move in your favor, that urgent problems resolve themselves, and that the frantic energy of others dissipates when it hits your perimeter. You have mastered the clock by refusing to wear its chains. The dark light of the singularity. The light that falls into a black hole doesn't disappear. It is transformed into the information that defines the singularity's surface. Similarly, every failure, every obstacle, and every attack from the matrix is simply more matter for you to swallow. There is no bad news for a black hole. If a project fails, you swallow the data, the lessons, and the energy, and you become denser. If an enemy attacks, you swallow their aggression and use it to expand your gravitational reach. You are a metabolic god of the corporate world. Everything that happens is food for your eventual expansion. The geometry of submission. Submission is not won through combat. It is an inevitable result of proximity to power. When you stop fighting for your place, you realize that your place is the center. This is the arrogance of the immutable. You don't ask for a seat at the table. You are the table around which the gravity of the room is organized. Observe your peers. See how they scramble for attention. See how they leak energy through their smiles, their pitches, and their need to be liked. You are the dark center. You are the one who listens. You are the one who decides. Your lack of reaction is the most violent statement of superiority ever made. The collapse of the competitor. A competitor is someone who thinks they are playing the same game as you. But they are hunters, and you are a gravitational anomaly. As they try to out-hunt you, they will find that their resources are being pulled into your orbit. Their best employees will want to work for you. Their clients will feel an unexplained pull toward your brand. They will try to fight this pull by working harder, which only increases their caloric expenditure and speeds up their own collapse. They are trying to swim against a waterfall. Eventually, their structural integrity fails. They are spaghettified, torn between their old logic and the new reality of your dominance. The zero-point treasury. Your wealth is not a collection of numbers in a database. It is the amount of energy you have successfully pulled into your personal singularity. To increase your wealth, you don't look for more jobs. You increase your capacity for attraction. You become more expensive by being less available. Every time you say no to a mediocre opportunity, your density increases. Every time you refuse to chase a quick win, your event horizon expands. You are building a treasury of gravity. The money doesn't just come to you, it is trapped by you. It can no longer leave your ecosystem because the exit velocity is too high. The solitude of the center. There is a profound loneliness at the center of a black hole, but it is the loneliness of the king. You cannot be one of the guys and a gravitational singularity at the same time. You must accept the isolation that comes with hyperdensity. The biomass will not understand you. They will fear you. Then they will worship you. This isolation is your Faraday cage. It keeps the static of the world out. It allows you to maintain the cold, dark pressure required to keep the stars falling in. Do not seek company in your boardrooms. Seek subordinates. Do not seek friends in the market. Seek orbits. Your sovereignty depends on your distance. The absorption of the matrix. The ultimate goal of the operator is to expand their event horizon until it encompasses the entire sector of their reality. You don't want a piece of the market. You want to become the market. You want every transaction in your field to be a result of your gravitational influence. This is the point of total capture. It is achieved through the persistent, gelida refusal to hunt. You sit, you stay, you condense, and you watch as the world, unable to resist the curve of the reality you have forged, begins to fall into your hands piece by piece. The hunt is over. The feast has begun. The feast has the ghost of the hunter. Occasionally the old hunter instinct will flare up. You will feel the urge to do something to secure a win. This is a ghost in your machine. It is the matrix trying to reboot your slave software. When this happens, look at your hands. Are they sweaty? Is your heart racing? If so, you are leaking mass. Stop immediately. Re-anchor your sub-base frequency. Remind yourself that a black hole does not run. It is the end of all running. If the result hasn't arrived, it means you need more silence, not more action. The ghost of the hunter is the only thing that can lead you out of the center and into the friction, the invisible empire. Because you operate in the dark, your empire is invisible until it is too late for anyone to stop it. By the time the biomass realizes you have captured the territory, they are already past the event horizon. There is no defense against a power that doesn't show its face or its hands. You are the secret architect of the market's collapse toward your vaults. You are the silent gravity that turns possibility into inevitability. You have mastered the optics of the black hole, and now the stars are yours to consume. The fourth threshold is crossed. The center holds. Everything else is just falling. The final compression. The final step in this chapter is the compression of your own identity. You must stop seeing yourself as a person who has power and start seeing yourself as power itself. A black hole doesn't have gravity. It is gravity. You don't have wealth. You are the point where wealth accumulates. This shift in identity is the final nail in the hunter's coffin. When you are the destination, the concept of getting there is destroyed. You have arrived. You are the singularity. Now simply breathe in the dark and wait for the light of the stars to reach your perimeter. The feast of the void is infinite. Chapter 5. The Forgery of the Witness, Ignoring the Evidence. The fraud of the five senses, the obsolete hardware. Its primary weapon is not physical force, it is optical illusion. It is the forgery of the witness. To master this level of the paradox of the blind observer, you must first understand the pathetic inferiority of your own biological measuring equipment, your five senses. The human biomass blindly trusts what it sees, touches, and hears. Their absolute doctrine is, seeing is believing. Analyze this stupidity with aseptic indifference. How do your biological eyes function? Your retinas capture photons of light that have bounced off physical objects. That light takes time to travel, and your slow, clumsy biological brain takes milliseconds to process that signal. By the laws of physics, you have never seen the present. Everything you see, touch, and hear in the three-dimensional world has already occurred. It is a frozen echo. It is dead matter. When the quantum operator injects $1 million collapse order into the singularity, the thermodynamic truth is altered instantly in the field. But when you open your biological eyes to see if you already have the money or the empire, your senses show you the scenery of scarcity. They show you your empty bank account. They show you the mediocre office. The biomass takes this visual evidence as absolute truth, panics, and cancels the order. You must learn to ignore them. You, the monarch of the instant, must learn to catalogue your own eyes as fraudulent witnesses, bribed by the matrix to lie to you. To stifle the panic in the face of adverse evidence, you must assimilate the concept of holographic lag, the rendering delay. In quantum physics, information travels instantaneously through entanglement. The 0 point has no latency. However, the three-dimensional ashboard is composed of physical atoms operating under the laws of Newtonian inertia. Matter is dense, viscous, and slow. It is like pressed coal trying to move at the speed of a photon laser. When you dictate a new architecture for your empire, the matrix must obey. But it takes linear time to reorganize the trillions of electrons of the market, the corporations, and the minds of others to materialize the physical structure of your demand. This is the delay abyss. During this holographic lag, the universe will continue to show you the scenery of the old reality. The bank will call you. Clients will reject you. Corporate metrics will bleed red. The matrix is projecting an old hologram because its servers have not yet finished compiling the new code of your sovereignty. If at that moment you observe the evidence of the crisis and grant it gravitational mass, your Zeno effect anchors in that old reality. The matrix stops the rendering of the new empire. The lethal operator understands that three-dimensional reality is only the corpse of their thoughts from yesterday. You do not fight with a corpse. You ignore it until it disintegrates. The old hologram will not only take time to disintegrate, it will intensify its siege. Quantum gaslighting, the agony of the parasite. In the instant before its definitive destruction, it will intensify its holographic siege. We call this the quantum gaslighting of the matrix. When the egregore of the ashboard detects that you have cooled your reactor and that you no longer emit the friction of anxiety, the system enters starvation. The matrix fed on your fear. By cutting off the thermal supply, the parasite enters biological panic. What does a parasite do when it feels the host is suffocating it? It bites with all its might to force a reaction. Prepare for the compression of false alarms. When you are applying black hole optics to perfection, the local universe will throw the worst. It will throw the worst three-dimensional evidence imaginable. A competitor will threaten to absorb you. A key ally will threaten to sue you. Your largest source of income will simulate an imminent collapse. The level of realism of the hologram at that moment will be terrifying. The biomass around you will weep and scream. They will show you graphs, bring you legal documents, and shout, "Open your eyes, it's over, look at the proof." They are trying to forge the eyewitness. They are injecting false evidence into the court of your consciousness so that you yourself sign your own sentence of scarcity. If you blink, the parasite wins. If your heart rate accelerates by a single beat, if your aseptic indifference cracks and you allow a single atom of fear to penetrate your Faraday cage, the parasite wins. The thermal leak reopens, the sub-bass frequency drops, and the hologram of disaster materializes. You must assassinate the intellectual judge within your head, murdering the intellectual judge, vetoing the 3D diagnosis. To resist quantum gaslighting, you cannot use logic. Logic is a three-dimensional tool, and faced with the 3D evidence of failure, logic will always tell you to surrender. You must establish a geometrically blind dictatorship. Imagine sitting in your operations center. The holographic crisis explodes before your eyes. You have to look directly at the bankruptcy documents, at the market rejections, or at the attacks of the competition, and apply an absolute thermodynamic veto. You have to declare, in the icy silence of your marrow, this evidence is irrelevant. This is residual noise from an obsolete rendering. I refuse to grant it mass. The biomass will call you a psychopath. They will say you are in a state of denial, that you have lost contact with reality. The response of quantum mechanics is affirmative. You have lost contact with their low-vibration reality because you are busy collapsing a reality of hyperdensity. You are executing conscious forgery. To the eyes of slave physics, you are the one who lies. You are claiming to be the invulnerable monarch while the world collapses over your head. But in the mechanics of the singularity, conscious matter does not obey the one who tells the descriptive truth. It obeys the one who imposes the prescriptive truth. Your job is not to describe the three-dimensional evidence. Your job is to ignore the evidence with such ballistic violence that the universe feels thermodynamically humiliated and finds itself forced to change the evidence to match your immobility. This is the ultimate test of the operator's structural strength. The tension of cognitive dissonance withstanding suffocation. Ignoring adverse physical evidence while holding the certainty of $1 million collapse is not a peaceful state. It is extreme structural torture. It generates immeasurable cognitive dissonance tension in your biological avatar. Imagine the abyss between what your eyes of flesh see and what your zero-point eye decrees. Your eyes of flesh see a bank account in red. Your quantum eye holds the ballistic certainty of $100 million monopoly. Holding both ends of the paradox without trying to reconcile them through kinetic action, without begging for money, creates an atmospheric compression that can fracture biological sanity. Endure the suffocation. Bite the osmium. This geometric tension is the hammer of creation crushing the old fabric of the matrix. Every minute of linear clock time that you manage to hold aseptic indifference in the face of catastrophe without moving a single muscle, you are accumulating thousands of megawatts of energy. The matrix is betting that your biological ego will not be able to withstand the tension of being seen as a failure. It is betting on your mammalian pride. If you let pride die, if you accept being seen as a temporary loser by the blind biomass while you hold the frequency of the undefeated king, you break the hologram. The universe does not have enough fuel to maintain an illusion against a black hole that refuses to feed it with fear. The lethal operator must lead the annihilation of the eyewitness to its most psychopathic and aseptic extreme. You must learn to also ignore the favorable evidence. This is the hidden trap. Favorable evidence is also a trap. In the paradox of the blind observer, the matrix will not only try to scare you with failure, sometimes it will try to seduce you with small crumbs of success so that you get hooked on emotion again and destroy your zero friction. Imagine that you are holding black hole optics to collapse a multinational corporation. Suddenly, the hologram throws you a small client, a moderate success, a small capital inflow. The instinct of the biological ego is to celebrate, to get excited, to look at that evidence and say, "It's working. The universe heard me." In the nanosecond you celebrate, you have just committed a lethal error. You looked back. You have put your eyes back on the ashboard. You have given authority to the holographic screen to dictate your mood. If the screen has the power to make you happy today because it gave you $1 million, it will have the power to depress you tomorrow if it takes it away. Annihilate the euphoria. It is kinetic friction. When the evidence of your success begins to materialize in the physical world, look at it with the same sepulchral boredom with which you looked at the crisis. Look at it with the aseptic indifference of the creator, who knows that $1 million is not a gift or a sign of good luck. It is simply the mathematical residue. It is the logical residue of the weight of your immobility. You do not celebrate that gravity made the apple fall to the ground because it was the only physical option possible. In the same way, you do not celebrate that your bank account explodes in hyperdensity. You assimilate it without blinking. The monarch does not smile. The collapse of the false scenery, the submission of reality. Look at yourself in the center of the crossfire of forgery. The ashboard howls around you. The markets project images of ruin. The false 3D witnesses present documented proof that your empire is mathematically impossible. And you remain seated in the geological center of the singularity, deaf, blind, and mute. You have taken detachment to its maximum expression. You have not only detached from your need for the result, you have detached from the tyranny of your own senses. You have declared that the only real universe is the one that exists inside your sub-base frequency, and that everything outside is plasticine. When the matrix realizes that the forgery of the witness has failed, when the 3D egregore registers empirically that it cannot extract a single calorie of fear from your nervous system, no matter how terrifying the illusion, the hologram surrenders. The collapse of the false scenery occurs. The old files are deleted. From 1 millisecond to another, the unsolvable crisis evaporates like smoke in the vacuum. Lawsuits are cancelled. Competitors who seemed invincible commit self-destructive errors and collapse. Markets that were closed open up through absurd and improbable coincidences. The server has been forced to render your dominion, the necrosis of the visual cortex. To truly ignore the evidence, you must treat your vision as a corrupted data stream. Imagine your eyes are not windows, but filtered screens projecting a delayed movie. When the bank statement shows 0, you must see it as a pixel error in the matrix. It is a ghost of a dead frequency. It is not happening now. The architecture of the unseen. Every great empire was built in the dark, long before it was visible to the biomass. If you wait for the visibility of your success to feel like a success, you are a follower, not a leader. The architecture of the unseen requires you to inhabit the finished structure while the rest of the world sees a vacant lot. Walk through your non-existent halls. Sit at your non-existent board table. Feel the weight of the gold that the bank says isn't there. If you do this with enough hyperdensity, the vacant lot will begin to feel like the illusion, and your internal empire will become the only solid reality. This is how matter is forced to shift. The mirage of the expert opinion. In times of transition, experts will appear to tell you why your path is impossible. They will bring spreadsheets and historical data. They are the high priests of the forked witness. They are paid to describe the corpse of yesterday. To an operator, an expert is just a person who is very good at predicting the past. Ignore them. Their data is based on a world where the observer is not blind. Their metrics do not account for the curve of space-time caused by your hyperdensity. When they speak of market trends, they are talking about the behavior of sheep. You are the wolf that became a black hole. Their laws no longer apply to you. The weight of the invisible gold. To balance the evidence of lack, you must carry the weight of invisible gold. This is not imagination, it is the accumulation of gravitational mass in the mental plane. When you walk, walk with the weight of someone who has $1 billion in their pocket. When you speak, speak with the authority of someone who owns the building. The matrix reacts to weight. If you carry yourself as if you are empty, it will keep you empty. If you carry yourself with the crushing weight of a titan, the floor of reality will begin to sag beneath your feet. The bank account will eventually catch up to the weight you are already carrying. The evidence must follow the mass. The desperation of the matrix. As the render approaches 99%, the matrix becomes desperate. It may offer you a way out that looks like a compromise. It might give you a small win if you agree to stop the collapse of the larger goal. This is a bribe. It wants you to acknowledge its power. It wants you to take your eyes off the singularity. The alchemy of the void. By ignoring the evidence, you are performing a form of quantum alchemy. You are taking the lead of a negative situation and through the fire of your indifference, turning it into the gold of your chosen reality. This alchemy happens in the space between the stimulus and your reaction. If the reaction is zero, the alchemy is complete. The void is where the transformation occurs. By not reacting to the bad news, you deprive it of the energy it needs to stay real. It loses its cohesion. It begins to dissolve. In its place, the new reality, the one you have been holding in your sub-base frequency, begins to solidify. You have turned nothingness into empire. The sovereign's boredom. Cultivate boredom toward the world's drama. When the media screams of crisis, be bored. When the market crashes, be bored. When your competitors celebrate their victory over you, be bored. Boredom is the ultimate shield. It shows that you are not even a participant in their game. You are the house, and the house always wins. Boredom is a state of high-density rest. It tells the matrix that its best tricks are not worth your attention. This infuriates the system, but also forces it to bow. There is nothing more terrifying to an illusionist than an audience member who refuses to look at the stage. Eventually, the illusionist stops the show and gives you the keys. The rendering of the new earth. Finally, the lag ends. You wake up one morning, and the evidence has changed. The phone calls are now offers of partnership. The bank account shows the numbers you dictated. The office is now a headquarters. The biomass will say you are lucky, or that you had a sudden turnaround. Chapter 6. The Preventive Morning, Suffocating Hope. The infection of hope, the slave's cancer. Analyze this concept under the aseptic indifference of the quantum operating room. The three-dimensional matrix, through its cheap philosophy, religions, and motivational culture, has programmed you to worship hope. They tell you that hope is the last thing to be lost. They tell you to keep faith, that tomorrow will be better. The quantum operator repels hope with an absolute geometric disgust. What is hope at a thermodynamic level? It is the explicit admission of doubt. Whoever has hope empirically assumes there is a high probability of failure and simply desires that the universe has mercy and does not destroy them. Hope is the prayer of the slave. It is the slave looking toward the sky, pleading that the master's whip does not fall on their back today. If you, from the core of your hyperdensity, emit an order of collapse to force a territorial monopoly and then sit down to hope it works, you have just injected poison into your own equation. Hope is a thermal leak. When the market says, if you don't accept these conditions, the deal falls through and you lose everything, the slave yields. The dead man smiles with a coldness that freezes the room and responds, let it fall. Since you have no hope of winning, you have no fear of it falling. You operate with absolute zero friction. By the paradox of the blind observer, that suicidal indifference generates an electromagnetic suction so immense that the counterpart panics and signs your conditions just to avoid losing you. For preventive mourning to anchor, you must accompany it with an act of geometric arrogance, the eradication of Plan B, suffocating the safety net, burning Plan B. The corporate biomass will always advise you to diversify your risks and have a safety net. They tell you not to put all your eggs in one basket. This is the tactic of cowards who have programmed their own defeat. Having a Plan B is an explicit electromagnetic declaration to the field that you do not trust Plan A. The universe, being a system of energy efficiency seeking the path of least resistance, will detect your doubt. It will detect that Plan A requires a geometric tension you are unwilling to hold, while Plan B requires much less energy. The universe will collapse your Plan B, and you will wonder why you never reach the singularity. If you have executed preventive mourning, Plan B is an insult. Close the escape valves. Fire the mediocre clients that keep you in the comfort zone, but steal time from the monopoly. Burn the bridges of return. Cancel the emotional insurance policies. Force yourself to operate without a harness at the edge of the abyss. When the ego realizes there is no safety net, and the fall is imminent if the collapse does not occur, the mammalian survival instinct shuts down from thermal overload. Your creator consciousness takes the wheel. The hyperfocus you acquire when victory is the only option is the nuclear fuel that melts the matrix. The absolute zero of expectation. As you sustain preventive mourning, the last layer of hope disintegrates. Expectation. Expectation is the bastard child of the intellect and linear time. It is the biological mind projecting an agenda on conscious matter. By Friday, there must be $1 million in the account through this specific partner. If Friday comes and the million is not there, the expectation breaks, the ego becomes depressed, and the Zeno effect anchors in failure. The quantum operator operates in the absolute zero of expectation. Having killed the result in your mind, you no longer expect it. If you wake up and the million is there, you feel no euphoria. You feel an aseptic boredom, like noting that 2 + 2 is 4. It is simple math. If Friday comes and the million is not there, you feel no disappointment. Frustration requires a prior expectation. Since you operated preventive mourning, the absence is just a holographic lag. You hold the immobility. You do not sweat. In this state, you are unkillable. You have emptied your field of the last drop of friction. The universe can no longer disappoint you because you ask for nothing. It cannot scare you because you burned fear at the funeral of your ambition. Look at yourself in the center of your controlled annihilation. You have strangled hope. You have renounced the pathetic euphoria of victory and assimilated the coldness of the quantum grave. You walk the ashboard expecting absolutely nothing from anyone, without asking for miracles, without begging for synchronicities. You have achieved the maximum expression of the paradox of the blind observer. It has genuinely stopped mattering to you, biologically and thermodynamically. It is not a mental trick to fool the universe. It is absolute indifference forged in the fire of suffocation. And in this icy vacuum, when the last molecule of need leaves your bloodstream, the lock of the universe breaks in half. The matrix, confronted by a biological organism that refuses to have hope, refuses to sweat, and has neutralized the fear of financial death, is left without weaponry. The control system collapses. The holographic server has no defenses against icy immobility. By letting go of the rope, the tension becomes infinite. The physical universe, in an act of thermodynamic surrender, begins to spit out results at the speed of light. Collapses that once cost years of pursuit now render in hours. You have crossed the fifth threshold. You killed the prey before hunting it, and by doing so you forced the prey to surrender itself. The necrosis of the future, living in the aftermath. When you kill the future, you kill the possibility of it being a threat. The preventive mourning technique creates a state of aftermath. Most people live in the before, the state of striving toward a goal. The operator lives in the after, the state where everything has already happened, even the disaster. Imagine the peace of a battlefield once the war is over. There is no more tension because there is no more maybe. By accepting the worst outcome as a memory rather than a possibility, you move through the present with the ghostly ease of someone who has already seen the end. This is the ultimate tactical advantage. The ghost protocol, zero signature presence. A dead man has no thermal signature. In the Matrix, thermal signatures are created by the heat of desire and the friction of fear. When you execute the mourning of your project, your signature drops to zero. You become invisible to the predatory algorithms of the ashboard that seek to feed on your anxiety. This is the ghost protocol. You can move through high-stakes negotiations, hostile takeovers, and market crashes without triggering the system's defensive mechanisms. Because you are not trying to win, the system does not recognize you as a threat to be countered. You simply are the void into which the prize falls. The desecration of success. To maintain this state, you must treat success as a desecration of your peace. When the results start to manifest, do not welcome them as a savior. Treat them as a mild annoyance, a material clutter that must be managed. This prevents the ego from resurrecting the hope for even more success. If you treat a $10 million profit as a miracle, you admit you are smaller than the money. If you treat it as a routine biological secretion of your intent, you maintain your status as the monarch. Desecrate the idols of success so they can never hold power over your emotional stability again. The void as a weapon of siege. Silence and lack of expectation act as a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum and will rush to fill it. By mourning the result, you create a massive hole in the holographic fabric. The matrix is forced to pour matter into that hole to balance the equation. Your not wanting is the strongest suction force in existence. The more empty you are of hope, the more full the universe must make your physical reality. It is a hydraulic law of the higher dimensions. You are not pulling the money toward you. You are creating a space where the money has no choice but to exist. You are the gravity that time cannot escape. The anatomy of the suicidal move. In business, the suicidal move is when you are willing to walk away from everything. But for the operator, it isn't a gamble, it's a fact. You have already walked away in your mind. This makes your no final. There is no room for negotiation, because you have already held the funeral for the deal. This absolute finality is terrifying to those who still cling to hope. They see a person who cannot be bribed, coerced, or intimidated. They see a force of nature. By being willing to lose everything, you gain the authority to dictate everything. The suicidal move is the birth of the sovereign, the cold fusion of intent. When hope dies, it leaves behind a concentrated residue, pure intent. Hope is diluted intent, mixed with the water of doubt. When you boil away the hope through preventive mourning, you are left with a cold fusion of pure command. This command doesn't need to shout, it simply is. This residue is the sub-bass frequency mentioned throughout this work. It is the sound of the universe's foundational machinery. By operating at this level, you are no longer playing the game. You are the one writing the code. Your intent becomes a law of physics within your local territory. The eradication of the how through mourning. Mourning the result also kills the obsession with the how. If you have accepted the death of the project, you no longer care about the logistics of its survival. This allows the unified field to take the route of zero friction without your clumsy intellectual interference. You are finally out of the way. The how is a bridge for the living. The dead do not need bridges, they are already everywhere. By accepting your failure in advance, you allow the most improbable, high-speed and miraculous hows to manifest because you are no longer guarding the door with your logical expectations. The sensory deprivation of the soul. Preventive mourning is a form of sensory deprivation. You stop looking for signs, you stop listening for news, and you stop feeling for progress. You enter a state of sensory silence. In this silence, the internal signal of your sovereignty becomes deafening. You no longer need to see the world to rule it. This is the blind observer in its most potent form. You are blind to the possibility of failure because you have already passed through it. You are blind to the promise of success because it has no power to move you. In this blindness, your third eye, the eye of the singularity, is fully open. The inversion of the matrix feed. The matrix is a feedback loop. Usually, it feeds you a stimulus, and you feed it an emotional reaction. By mourning the outcome, you break the loop. You receive the stimulus, a failure, and you return nothing. You have already processed the grief. You have no more payment to give the system. When the system cannot get a reaction from you, it begins to malfunction. It starts to offer you better stimuli to get a response. This is when the miracles happen. The system is trying to buy your attention back. Accept the gifts with a cold heart and maintain your silence. You are the one in control now. The architecture of the unmovable. You are building an empire that is unmovable because its foundations are in the void. An empire built on hope can be destroyed by disappointment. An empire built on the dead man's indifference is invincible. Even if it is physically destroyed, you have already survived its death once. You can simply render it again. This makes you a perpetual threat to the status quo. You are an organism that cannot be broken because you are already broken by design. You have incorporated the worst-case scenario into your structure. You are the obsidian mountain that the winds of the ashboard cannot erode, the purity of the void. As you move into the final stages of the morning, you will feel a lightness. The weight of your ambition has been lifted. You are no longer carrying your empire. The empire is being projected from your state of rest. You have achieved the purity of the void. You are the ghost in the machine, and the machine is yours. The fifth umbral has been fully integrated. You have suffocated the cancer of hope. You have accepted the funeral. Now, as the dead man, you are ready for the most dangerous phase, the phase of manifestation. When the results arrive, they will try to bring you back to life. You must stay in the grave. In the paradox of the living dead. You appear to be alive. You participate in the world. You move billions of dollars. You lead armies of employees. But internally, you are a silent void. This is the paradox of the living dead. You use the world without being used by it. You enjoy the fruits of your sovereignty without being a slave to their taste. The next chapter will deal with the panic of the peak, that moment when the reality you've dictated begins to crush the old world so fast that even the operator feels the urge to blink. Stay cold, stay dead. The singularity is nearing, and it requires your absolute unmoving silence to complete the collapse. Chapter 7. Tightrope tension, detachment at the peak. The resurrection of the parasite. You cooled the reactor, applied tactical blindness, mutilated the how, and operated the funeral of your own hope. By emptying yourself of all need and transmuting into a black hole, the physical universe had no choice but to yield. The paradox of the blind observer has worked. Conscious matter has crossed your event horizon. It is heading toward you at a dizzying speed. The contract is drafted. The capital is about to be transferred. The competitor is on their knees. The goal that once seemed unreachable is now a single millimeter from solidifying in your 3D coordinates. And it is exactly here, at the peak of materialization, where 99% of operators fail. They disintegrate their own empire. What happens in the biological system when the hologram of victory becomes imminent? The mammalian ego, that parasite you suffocated in previous chapters, detects the proximity of matter. It smells the blood of the prey. As an organism addicted to survival and validation, it resurrects with hysterical violence. Your brain begins to secrete cascades of dopamine and adrenaline. Your hands sweat. Your heart rate soars. The intellect screams, "We did it! It's almost ours! Don't let it escape!" In that nanosecond of anticipated euphoria, you have just reactivated the thermal leak. You have burned the very fabric of the quantum result. The friction of the last millimeter. Analyze this structural failure with the aseptic indifference of the operating room. You had kept the room dark throughout the entire quantum developing process. The film was about to solidify the image of your monopoly. But 1 millimeter before the chemical reaction finished, you could not stand the excitement. You turned on the white light of desire and burned the photograph. When you react with anxiety or euphoria toward the imminence of the result, you communicate to the unified field that obtaining this result is an extraordinary event, something that saves you. If it saves you, it means you were in danger. You return to scarcity. Tightrope tension is the physical phenomenon that occurs when the gravity of your goal is so dense it threatens to pull you out of your own center of mass. It is easy to be detached when the goal is 5 years away. The true monarch is tested when the $10 million check is on the table and the pen is held out to sign. If at that moment you reach out with hunger, if you grab the pen with the slight kinetic tension of need, the 3D investor, guided by the subconscious intelligence of the matrix, will feel your friction. Something in their biological instincts will tell them you are desperate, and they will withdraw the check. The fraud of the final push. The culture of corporate slaves glorifies aggression in the final stretch. They indoctrinate you with closing tactics. They tell you that when the client hesitates in the last minute, you must pressure, give the final push, not let the prey go. This is the supreme blasphemy against higher thermodynamics. If you, being a body of infinite mass, the singularity, apply kinetic force to push a deal toward closing, you are violating gravitational law. You are inverting the poles. By pushing, you project your energy outward, which instantly repels the conscious matter that was falling toward you. It creates a massive repulsion field. Imagine yourself in the center of a critical negotiation that has stalled at the last centimeter. The other party asks for more time, tries to change a clause, or simply remains silent. The hunter becomes terrified of losing months of work and begins to yield. They send messages, offer discounts, or call to clarify doubts. By doing this, the hunter has just transferred all their voltage to the opponent. They have surrendered the throne. The quantum operator applies the immobility of the tightrope. If the objective stops at the last millimeter, the operator does not take a step forward. They take a step back. They withdraw their field entirely. The sniper's breath, absolute zero. Instead of pressing, they suffocate the channel with a cold, absolute, and indifferent silence. To survive tightrope tension, you must assimilate the biology of an elite sniper about to take a shot from 2 kilometers away. The sniper does not push the bullet. They do not shout at the bullet to reach its destination. If at the moment of pulling the trigger the sniper feels emotion, anxiety to hit, or fear to miss, their heart rate alters. A single faster beat makes their finger tremble a fraction of a millimeter. At 2 kilometers, that tremble misses by 5 meters. For the bullet to hit, the sniper must apply temporary biological death. They must empty their lungs. They must slow their heartbeat to the edge of a coma. At the instant of execution, the sniper is not alive. They are simply a cold, mechanical extension of the rifle. The ash board is your precision rifle. When the contract lands on your desk, you must apply the sniper's exhalation. Do not smile. Do not celebrate internally. Murder the dopamine spike. Freeze the blood in your veins and force your nervous system to operate at the frequency of a geological ice block. Force yourself to sign that document or receive that transfer with the same sepulchral boredom with which you tie your shoes. Withdrawing the holographic hand. The tactical execution of detachment at the peak requires a psychopathic mastery of negative space. You must learn to withdraw the hand just before touching the prize. This does not mean you sabotage the 3D result. It means you cancel any emotional hook that binds you to that specific outcome. Imagine yourself before the maximum prize. You have applied black hole optics. The prize is being sucked in by your gravity. When it is close enough for your biological ego to want to reach out and catch it, you execute the thermodynamic veto. You tell yourself in the absolute darkness of your marrow, you are irrelevant. I do not need you to sustain my hyperdensity. If in this millisecond you decide to disintegrate and never materialize, my quantum structure will not suffer the alteration of a single electron. Feel the black magic of this simultaneous negation. By denying conscious matter the ability to alter you, you strip its power. Since conscious matter, money, people, success, seeks to subordinate itself to the force of greatest immobility, by withdrawing your hand, you force matter to take that last leap of gravitational desperation to cling to your core. You do not take the empire, you force the empire to beg to orbit around you. The egregor's final test. You must be prepared with heavy armor, because the matrix does not surrender without launching its last and most sadistic attack. We call this the egregor's scarcity test. Just when you are applying the sniper's breath in the final millimeter, the local universe will test if your zero friction is genuine. It simulates that the deal falls through at the last second. Imagine the investor, pen in hand, suddenly stops and says, "I've thought it over. I think I'm going to withdraw the offer. There is too much risk." This is the tightrope abyss. The slave's biological ego would enter atomic panic. They would beg and justify. The moment they plead, they fail the test. The investor perceives the desperation and leaves forever. The quantum operator recognizes this optical illusion immediately. They know it is the Matrix's defense program launching a false hologram of rejection to try and open a thermal leak in their reactor, the response of the singularity. Absolute apathy. Imagine looking the investor in the eyes without a single fiber of your face moving. Your heart rate remains static. You offer no arguments. You don't try to retain them. You look at them with the icy compassion of a god observing a confused insect. The inversion of polos. You respond with a voice of lead. It is your decision. The door is open. My corporation will continue its expansion with or without your capital. Have a good day. And you turn to leave. Observe the physics of what just happened. By offering not a single ohm of friction, you created an unbearable pressure vacuum. The investor expected to hit the wall of your need. They expected you to react so they could feed on your energy and take control. By removing the wall, the investor falls face first into the void. Their ego collapses. Their brain detects that you have a power they cannot understand, a hyperdensity that does not alter. Immediately, the polarity inverts. The investor feels an irrational terror of losing the association with an organism so dense and lethal. In most cases of applied zero friction, before you reach the door, the hologram fractures. Wait, it doesn't have to be this way. Let's close the deal now. You turn slowly. You do not smile. You feel no relief, for relief would imply you felt fear before. You return to the table with the heavy step of osmium. Take what is yours by geometric right and assimilate the matter into your reactor without emitting a single spark of triumph or victory. Cold digestion of victory. The final error of the biomass is noisy celebration. When the slave achieves their goal, they run to celebrate. They post on social media. They buy alcohol. They scream and jump. This euphoria is the certificate of their mediocrity. It screams to the field, "Look what I did, it's a miracle, I don't deserve this." Euphoria decreases density. It is a light gas that evaporates quickly, leaving the system exhausted and ready to return to scarcity. The quantum operator executes the cold digestion of victory. Look at yourself in the center of your new materialized monopoly. The $1 million is in the account. The corporation is under your absolute command. The ashboard has bowed. Breathe in the success and swallow it whole. There are no public celebrations, no stupid smiles. You assimilate it with the same clinical normalcy with which a black hole swallows a star. It is yours because you are the monarch, the king in the shadow. Look at yourself in the quantum operating room. You have survived tightrope tension. The siege against your own nervous system has been relentless. You refused to push matter when it was far, and you refused to cling to it when it was between your fingers. You suffocated euphoria and murdered panic. You have achieved absolute mastery of the paradox of the blind observer. The universe has delivered its most valuable core to you precisely because you demonstrated the psychopathic capacity to give not an atom of importance to its delivery. But the siege does not conclude with obtaining a single trophy. A static empire is an empire that begins to rot under the friction of linear time. For the paradox to operate continuously and forge inexhaustible geometric growth, you must learn to saturate your current nanosecond with a hyperdensity that cancels the need for the future. You are the king in the shadow. Chapter 8. The Saturation of the Present, Filling the Void. The waiting room of slaves, the three-dimensional procedure. Observe the biomass with the coldness of a surgeon. How does the slave live their day-to-day life? They live it as a procedure. They live hating their current job, their current bank account, and their current physical state. They spend Monday through Friday in a state of painful anesthesia, drooling for the weekend. They treat their current millisecond as a dirty and boring waiting room. Their only reason to breathe is the illusion that tomorrow will bring them redemption. Analyze this aberration from superior thermodynamics. If you treat your current moment as a simple bridge to future success, you create an immense gravitational void in your core. The universe scans your neural network and detects the hidden message. I hate this moment. I am empty. I need the future to arrive to fill me. That feeling of emptiness is the most powerful magnetic repellent of the unified field. Conscious matter will never collapse into the coordinates of an organism that despises where it stands. The hidden power of the mind, murdering the temporal leak. The Matrix has deceived you by convincing you that mental power consists of imagining the future. False. The true hidden power of the mind does not reside in projecting holographic fantasies into a tomorrow that does not exist. It resides in its thermodynamic capacity to compress all the energy of the cosmos into this instant. It resides in the thousandth of a second that is happening right now. You have to assimilate that the future is an electromagnetic garbage dump. When you project your attention toward the future, even if it is a future of wealth and dominance, you are dividing your voltage. You are sending photons of creative energy to a dead coordinate. You are abandoning the command post, the present, to go patrol a ghost terrain. The paradox of the blind observer dictates that the universe only delivers what you stop pursuing. But how do you stop pursuing the empire of the future? You don't achieve it simply by saying, I don't want it anymore. You achieve it through density. You achieve it by making your present so immensely dense, so heavy, and so absolute that you have no atomic space left in your brain to think about tomorrow. We call this the saturation of the present. Imagine yourself immobilized in your operations center. You are surrounded by the temporal reality. Perhaps you lack the millions. Perhaps the market has not yet surrendered. The biomass, seeing that reality, would become depressed and flee toward the hope of the future. You are going to apply hyperdensity. Instead of fleeing your imperfect present, you will dive into it with the aggressiveness of a geometric predator. You will inject zero friction. The saturation of the nanosecond, injecting hyperdensity. Inject zero friction into the nanosecond. Feel the chair you are sitting in. Feel the cold air entering your biological lungs. Listen to the static of the ashboard. Now, inject the sub-bass frequency of your aseptic indifference into the scene. Observe your surroundings not as a miserable procedure you must endure. See it as the perfect, exact, and mathematically designed territory in which the monarch has decided to set his boots today. Declare in the darkness of your marrow, this millisecond is the empire. There is nothing beyond this oxygen. There is nothing beyond this heartbeat. My gravity is absolute here and now. By saturating your current moment with a cold and lethal acceptance, you completely eradicate the feeling of lack. You have just filled the void. You are no longer a beggar waiting for the arms of Kronos. You are a supermassive star that is burning with total perfection in its own coordinate. You are the center, the icy joy of conscious matter. When you saturate the present, a mutation occurs in your internal chemistry. You abandon the search for happiness and enter icy joy. Happiness is a cheap hormone for mammals. It is dopamine injected by the Matrix when the slave receives a prize which evaporates in 3 days, leaving them addicted and hungry again. Icy joy is the thermodynamic peace of the black hole. Imagine executing a monotonous corporate task or walking down an empty street in the middle of a market crisis. Having murdered the expectation of the future, you are in no hurry. Since there is no tomorrow to reach, speed loses its meaning. You enjoy the execution. You enjoy aseptic action for the sake of action itself. You delight in the movement of electrons. Conscious matter, your company, your assets, your capital, detects this icy joy. It detects that you are interacting with it not to squeeze quick money out of it in the future, but because you are the architect. You are the architect who enjoys the pure geometric tension of organizing the universe. Matter, not feeling used as a simple means to an end, eliminates its resistance. Bureaucratic obstacles dissolve. The minds of your partners and clients open. By not suffocating the process with your need to reach the goal, it flows. The annihilation of the next, the hamster syndrome. To sustain the saturation of the present, you must amputate a linguistic and conceptual virus from your nervous system, the concept of the next. The biomass is chronically infected with this virus. When they are on step 1, they are already suffering about how they will climb to step 2. It is a constant flight. When they earn their first million, instead of assimilating the dark matter, they immediately start sweating blood thinking about the next million. When they close a deal, they are anxious for the next client. It is the hamster wheel of inferior thermodynamics. It is the condemnation to never inhabit victory. The quantum operator operates under the dictatorship of terminality. Every action you execute, every contract you sign, every millisecond you breathe, you must treat it as if it were the final and definitive act of your existence in the hologram. Imagine closing a deal. Do not allow the weak intellect to calculate. Do not allow it to calculate the next move. Suffocate the calculation. Saturate the moment of the closing. Inhabit the signing of the document with so much density that linear time stops. By refusing to look toward the next step, you force the universe to concentrate 100% of the collapse energy here. The collapse of Chronos. All timelines converge. An action executed with 100% of the singularity's energy has enough force to detonate probabilistic shockwaves that open hundreds of side doors you could never have planned. The physical consequence of saturating the nanosecond is the collapse of Chronos within your biology. Time is not a line. In high-frequency quantum mechanics, it is understood that past, present, and future are simultaneous coordinates of information in the unified field. The biomass experiences the illusion of time because its brain is too slow to process simultaneity. When you stop pursuing the future, you withdraw your attention. You withdraw attention from subsequent frames. All that electromagnetic mass returns suddenly to your current frame. Imagine the thermodynamic violence of this phenomenon. You are attracting the energy of the empire you would have built in 10 years, and you are compressing it into the millisecond you breathe now. You are attracting the wisdom, coldness, and detachment of the monarch of the following decade, and you are injecting them into your current spinal cord. Feel the atmospheric pressure of this collapse. Your physical presence becomes overwhelming for the biomass. You are charged with the voltage of 10 timelines. The bait of the present, forcing matter to react. You are no longer an organism in development. You are the final result compacted into an avatar that inhabits the present. And here resides the final trap you set for the ashboard. When the 3D matrix scans your coordinates, it discovers something that defies its programming code. It finds an organism. It finds a biological organism that is absolutely full, that has no urgency, that feels no void, and that inhabits its present with the immovable majesty of a black hole. The universe reacts by the law of pressure compensation. Since you refuse to go to the future for wealth, the universe must bring it to you. The universe has no choice but to take the wealth of the future and vomit it violently into your present. By saturating your current reality with the hyper-density of your aseptic indifference, you have turned your present into an irresistible electromagnetic bait. Alliances, monopolies, and capital rush toward you. They detect no kinetic resistance in your field and rush toward your holographic vaults at the speed of light. You have become the absolute master of the paradox. The universe gave you the keys, not because you ran faster, but because you had the icy arrogance to sit on the throne of the eternal now. Isolated perfection. You declared you did not need to move a single millimeter to possess everything. Look at yourself in the quantum operating room, in the geological center of your own nanosecond. You have stopped fleeing your present. You have stopped using your current life as a dirty bridge toward the promised land. You burned the bridge and realized the promised land was always hidden under your own boots. You are no longer a hunter. You are no longer a slave to hope. You are no longer a victim of 3D evidence. You have emptied desire and filled that space with the lethal immensity of your ballistic certainty. But thermodynamic dominance and the attraction of conscious matter bring a danger of high radiation. As your empire begins to collapse and the ashboard hands you absolute 3D power, the matrix will detect your hyperdensity. They will try to adore you or destroy you. The ego will feel the urge to show off. Chapter 9. Osmium Camouflage, Thermodynamic Invisibility. The hemorrhage of vanity. This behavior, under the aseptic indifference of the quantum operating room, is a thermodynamic aberration. It is the hemorrhage of vanity. The need to show off your power is the empirical demonstration that you are not yet accustomed to it. It is the thermal signature of the imposter. When you shout your victories, you emit residual heat. You are projecting your hyperdensity outward to buy the admiration of insects. In the physics of the vacuum, trading pure gravitational mass for the applause of the biomass is the most stupid and destructive barter an organism can perform. The quantum operator repels vanity not for humility, but for thermodynamic survival strategy. The radar of the egregore, the matrix's antibodies. The ashboard is not an inert stage. It is a parasitic egregore, a hive mind seeking to maintain the balance of its own mediocrity. This control system possesses an electromagnetic radar extremely sensitive to friction spikes. When you brag about your empire, when you make noise, your auric field lights up like a magnesium flare. The egregore detects that light. It detects the anomaly of your success and understands you are hoarding too much conscious matter. The automatic reaction is to deploy antibodies. The matrix will infect the minds of the biomass around you. It will inject envy into partners, resentment into employees, and greed into competitors. You will suffer incomprehensible sabotages, media attacks, and betrayals. It is not bad news. It is the immune system of the ashboard attempting to disintegrate your empire to return electrons to the general ecosystem. You, with the radiant sweat of your vanity, programmed the enemy missiles and gave them your coordinates. The physics of osmium camouflage, absorbing light. To sustain the empire long-term, you must execute osmium camouflage. Osmium is one of the densest metals in the universe. Unlike gold, which is idolized because it reflects light and shines, osmium has a dark blue, almost black tone. It does not shine. Its lethality resides in its absolute and immovable internal hyperdensity. The lethal operator must transmute their holographic field into osmium. Imagine being anchored at the peak of your financial power. You have the capacity to destroy an entire industry with a snap of your fingers. You have millions of volts of liquid capital, yet your exterior is an expressionless abyss. You emit no light at all. The quantum operator knows that being the visible face of an empire is offering your own forehead for snipers to aim at. The personal brand is a holographic prison. Once you build a public character, you become a slave to expectations. You have to feed the character. You have to spend your density on public relations. Movement of tectonic plates, the silent offensive. Osmium camouflage is also your military doctrine for expansion. When the 3D hunter wants to attack, they make noise. They launch aggressive marketing and make threatening statements. They make the noise of a firecracker. The firecracker warns everyone around, giving them time to raise shields and prepare defenses. The quantum operator moves like a tectonic plate. Imagine the Earth's crust, billions of tons shifting in absolute geological darkness. They make no noise. They do not warn the surface. The friction is sub-base. They position themselves, accumulating pressure while the city above sleeps, ignorant of imminent doom. When you finally release the energy of your corporate collapse, the result is a magnitude 9 earthquake. The competition wakes up to discover the market has been rewritten, their suppliers bought, and their capital absorbed. They look for the source of the blow, but it is too late. The tsunami is already upon them. The operator who generated the fracture remains seated on their obsidian throne, drinking coffee, watching news of the collapse with aseptic indifference. You have destroyed an entire ecosystem without emitting a single decibel of warning. This is the ultimate expression of the black hole's geometric superiority. The necrosis of recognition, the final severing. To achieve the full density of osmium, you must induce a necrosis in the part of your brain that seeks external approval. This is not a social skill, it is a neurological amputation. In the world of the biomass, recognition is a currency. In the world of the operator, recognition is a radioactive contaminant. Every time someone recognizes your power, a piece of that power is quantized. It is measured, and as we know from the Zeno effect, that which is measured becomes frozen and limited. By remaining unrecognized, your power remains in a state of infinite quantum superposition. It can be anything because it is seen as nothing. The self that wants to be seen is a leak in your pressure vessel. When you feel the urge to correct someone who underestimates you or to display your wealth to silence a critic, you are opening a valve. You are letting your hard-earned hyperdensity hiss out into the atmosphere as useless heat. Close the valve. The architecture of ghost capital. An empire under osmium camouflage does not look like an empire. It looks like a series of disconnected, mundane events. Your wealth should be distributed across so many layers of non-existence that no single point of failure can be identified by the egregore. You own the banks, but your name isn't on the accounts. You own the land, but your signature isn't on the deeds. This is the architecture of ghost capital. By disconnecting the owner from the owned in the holographic record, you create a zero-friction flow of resources. The matrix's legal and financial sensors are designed to track identities. When there is no identity, the sensors report a vacuum. This vacuum is your playground. You can move billions of dollars across borders, trigger market shifts, and acquire competitors, while the system's antibodies, the tax authorities, the competitors, the media, are busy attacking a straw man you've placed in the spotlight to distract them. You are the architect of the invisible. The predator of the deep, bioluminescence versus pressure. Most successful people are like bioluminescent creatures in the deep sea. They glow to attract mates or prey, but that same glow makes them visible to larger predators. The operator is the pressure of the ocean itself. You do not need to glow. You are the weight of the water that crushes those who stray too deep. Bioluminescence is a desperate strategy for those who fear they won't be noticed. The operator has no fear of being unnoticed. They have a fear of being detected. Your strength is your anonymity. When you walk through a high-end gala or a corporate boardroom, you should be the least remarkable person in the room. This allows you to observe the thermal signatures of everyone else. You see their vanity, their insecurity, and their desperate need to be seen as important. Their egos are glowing brightly, revealing all their weak points. Because you are made of osmium, you reflect nothing, and you see everything. You are the ghost in the machine. The erasure of the past, burning the trail. To maintain osmium camouflage, you must also erase the trail of how you arrived at your current coordinates. The Matrix loves a success story. It wants to know your how, your struggles, and your rise. It wants to turn your life into a narrative it can categorize and control. Refuse the narrative. Delete the history. When you achieve a massive collapse of wealth or power, do not leave a trail of breadcrumbs for the biomass to follow. Make it look like an accident, a fluke, or the work of someone else. If the world thinks you are lucky, they will not fear you. If they do not fear you, they will not attack. Luck is the perfect cover for a quantum operator. It is a category the 3D mind uses to explain away things it cannot understand. Let them call you lucky while you systematically dismantle their industries. Let them call you a one-hit wonder while you prepare your 10th consecutive tectonic shift. Your lack of history is your greatest shield. The void of the boardroom, managing via absence. In your corporate structures, practice the art of management via absence. A typical leader feels the need to be present, to be vocal, to lead from the front. This is just ego disguised as productivity. The osmium operator leads via the vacuum. Your absence creates a tension that forces your subordinates to perform. By not being there, you become a myth. Your instructions delivered through proxies carry the weight of a divine decree. Because no one sees you sweat or hesitate, your will is perceived as an absolute law of nature. This creates a culture of zero friction within your organization. The king is everywhere precisely because he is seen nowhere. If you are always present, you are human. If you are never seen, you are a force of gravity. The transition from human to force is the essence of the ninth threshold. You are no longer an executive. You are a localized distortion in the probability field of the global economy. Your absence is the most powerful presence in the room. The silence of the vault, protecting the frequency. The sub-bass frequency of your empire is fragile in the presence of noise. Vanity is noise. Every time you talk about your plans, you are introducing static into the signal. The Osmium camouflage acts as a soundproofing layer. It keeps the internal vibration of your mandate pure and undisturbed by the opinions of the biomass. When you are in a negotiation, use the Osmium stare. It is a gaze that absorbs information without giving any back. Most people speak to fill the silence because silence makes them feel light and vulnerable. The operator uses silence to increase their density. Let the other person talk until they have emptied their lungs and their strategy. By the time they are finished, they will have revealed their entire hand, while you remain a dark, blue-black mystery. They will feel the weight of your silence pressing against their chest. They will offer concessions just to make you speak. And when you finally do, your words will have the weight of a planet because they are so rare. The dismantling of the egoic mirror. We are trained from birth to look for ourselves in the eyes of others. This is the egoic mirror. To achieve osmium camouflage, you must smash the mirror. You must reach a point where you feel absolutely nothing when you are praised and absolutely nothing when you are insulted. Both are just light trying to bounce off you. If you can be moved by a compliment, you can be controlled by a critic. Smashing the mirror means you no longer rely on the external world to tell you who you are. Your identity is a self-contained singularity. You are who you dictate yourself to be in the silence of your core. The world's perception of you is just a low-resolution hologram. This makes you immune to the gaslighting of the matrix. When the system tries to tell you that you are failing or that you are small, the words hit the osmium of your certainty and are absorbed into the void. You do not even need to argue. You simply continue to exist with more density than the lie. The stealth of the tsunami. Remember that the most dangerous forces in nature are those you don't see coming. A volcano gives warnings. A tsunami is a silent withdrawal of the sea before the strike. Your business maneuvers should follow this pattern. Withdraw your energy from the visible market. Make it look like you are retreating or losing interest. Chapter 10. The Consummated Paradox, the Collapse in the Blind Spot. The Heresy of Technique, dropping the scalpel. Analyze the dependence on technique with aseptic indifference. As long as you continue to consciously apply manifestation techniques, as long as you sit down every day to inject sub-bass frequency or check if your Faraday cage remains intact, you are emitting a signature of friction. The ultimate paradox of the universe establishes that absolute power is denied to you as long as you attempt to exercise it by force. You have to drop the scalpel. You have to reach a level of thermodynamic arrogance so obscene that you feel absolute laziness toward continuing to apply techniques to dominate the matrix. The true creator does not practice creation. The creator simply exists, and creation is the passive residue of his biological respiration. To drop the tools, you must commit the ultimate murder on the operating table of your own consciousness, the suicide of the creator self. The suicide of the holographic God, the death of identity. Throughout this siege, you have killed the slave, the victim, and the anxious mammal. But in doing so, your biological ego has built a new and shiny armor. It has put on the disguise of the lethal operator, the monarch of the instant, the quantum manipulator. Your ego feels powerful and superior to the biomass. That superior identity is the last trap of the matrix. The universe does not surrender to an identity, no matter how majestic, because every identity is an isolated structure, and every isolated structure has a thermal limit. As long as you see yourself as a god dominating reality, you operate in duality, a you and a universe. When you annihilate the identity of the Creator, you discover empirically that you do not need a title for matter to obey you. You discover that you are not dominating the universe from the outside, you are the engine room of the universe itself. The drop of water does not dominate the ocean, it disappears and assumes the force of the tsunami. The end of geometric tension, icy relaxation. In this state, the metabolic stress of manifestation disappears. You experience icy relaxation. Your physical avatar experiences an aberrant lightness. You no longer feel the heaviness in your chest or the friction in your spine. You have stopped holding up the universe with the muscles of your biological mind. You get up in the morning, prepare your 3D coffee, and execute your movements in your projects, but you do it with the same emotional vacuity with which a shadow moves across pavement. If the phone rings and it is bad news, you do not flinch. If it is good news, you do not flinch. You are floating in the eye of the hurricane. Icy relaxation is not complacency. It is the absolute certainty that the gears of dark matter are already turning by their own inertia. Any attempt on your part to accelerate them would only throw sand in the mechanism. It is the psychopathic confidence of the man who has already pressed the nuclear button. He simply sits to enjoy the silence before the shockwave incinerates the city. You no longer force the door of the quantum lock. You lean back against it and wait for the pressure from the other side to blow it wide open. How and when does the physical impact hit the ashboard? It happens exactly in the blind spot. The fracture of reality, the millisecond of delivery. It will happen on a Thursday afternoon while you are washing a dish, driving down an empty street, or thinking about something completely irrelevant. It will occur in the exact millisecond when your nervous system is vibrating in the purest and most absent zero friction of your existence. In that instant of total vacuum, the matrix cracks. The email arrives, the phone rings, the investor signs, the competitor declares bankruptcy. The most ridiculous and improbable synchronicity of the universe aligns to vomit the capital, territory, and sovereignty directly onto your knees. The paradox is consummated. The universe hands you the keys to the empire exactly when you manage to convince your own biology that it no longer needed them to justify its existence. It is not magic. It is fluid thermodynamics. Cosmic water always flows toward the point of lowest elevation. It flows toward the vessel most empty of pride, anxiety, and kinetic resistance. By emptying yourself of the need to be the king, the gravity of the crown has no other choice but to fall upon your head. Look at yourself. Absorb the final scene of your own annihilation and victory. The Creator dissolved in his own work. There is no longer a quantum operating room. There is no obsidian throne. You have melted the tools and burned the laboratory. You have overcome the heresy of effort, suffocated hope, forged the witnesses of scarcity, and wrapped yourself in the invisibility of dark matter. You stand in your physical monopoly. The empire is materialized around you. The numbers on the screens are astronomical. The territorial structure obeys your breath, and yet you do not feel a single molecule of euphoria. You look at the golden power as simple electron dust, a boring extension of your own electromagnetic anatomy. You are not the master of this empire. You have dissolved into it. You are the empire itself. There is no separation. There is no quantum operator celebrating victory over the ashboard. There is only the icy immensity of the singularity occupying its rightful space in the fabric of 3D space-time. You have devoured the paradox. You have collapsed the blind spot. You have annihilated the search. And in the deafening silence of this aseptic victory, where there are no battles left to fight or desires to suffocate, you face the eternity of the monarch at rest. You are the apex organism, the necrosis of ambition, the final coldness. Once the collapse is physical, once the millions are tangible and the territory is secured, the operator must face the final threat, the resurrection of ambition. Ambition is a forward-looking heat. It is a hunger for more. But in the state of the consummated paradox, more is a logical impossibility. If you are the singularity, there is nothing outside of you to acquire. To feel ambition after the collapse is to admit that you have separated yourself from the all once again. You must induce a necrosis of ambition. You must look at your vast empire with the same coldness a mountain looks at the snow upon its peak. This final coldness ensures that the matrix cannot use your success to re-entrap you. Most who reach the top become slaves to their own legacy. They spend their remaining energy defending what they built. The operator does not defend. A black hole does not defend its mass. It simply continues to exist. The ghost in the corporate machine. Your physical presence in your new empire must be that of a ghost. You move through the halls of your corporations, you sign the documents, but your frequency anchor remains in the 0 point. You are a biological puppet being moved by the infinite intelligence of the vacuum you created. You have no self left to attack. The egregore of the ashboard may try to send its antibodies, but they find no host. You are the invisible hand that moves the markets, the silent will that dictates the laws. You have achieved total sovereignty by becoming totally non-existent as a separate ego. The geometry of automatic expansion. In the consummated paradox, expansion is no longer a choice or a project. It is a geometric inevitability. Because you have dissolved the operator, the field is now free to expand according to its own infinite nature. Your empire will grow not because you work on it, but because it is the nature of the void to fill itself. If you try to take the wheel, you introduce friction. If you try to plan the next move, you limit the outcome to your human intellect. In the consummated paradox, the plan is simply the unfolding of the singularity. You are the witness of your own omnipotence, watching as the 3D world reshapes itself to fit your internal silence. The silence of the apex. The noise of the world will continue. The biomass will scream, the markets will fluctuate, and the political theaters will rage. But for you, all of it is silent. You are like a deep-sea creature living miles below the surface. The storms above do not reach your pressure level. You exist in the silence of the apex, the void as a permanent residence. The Punto Cero is no longer a place you visit during meditation. It is your permanent residence. You carry the vacuum with you into every boardroom, every private jet, and every strategic meeting. You are a walking void. This ensures that no matter how much matter you accumulate, you never become heavy. You remain light, aseptic, and lethal. The millions of dollars in your accounts have no weight because they do not define you. The power you exercise has no friction because it does not exhaust you. You have discovered the secret of infinite energy. It only flows through those who have nowhere to store it except in the void. The dissolution of time. Linear time has finally collapsed. You no longer live for the future victory, nor do you regret the past struggle. You inhabit the infinite nanosecond. Every moment is the moment of the collapse. Every breath is the breath of the monarch. Time is no longer a sequence. It is a landscape that you own. This dissolution of time allows you to move with a precision that seems like precognition. You know what the market will do because you are the frequency that drives the market. You know when to move because you are the one who dictates the rhythm of the space-time fabric. You are the clock and the hands. And the legacy of nothingness. What is the legacy of an operator who has dissolved into the field? It is not a statue or a name in a history book. It is a permanent alteration of the probability field in your sector of reality. You have carved a hole in the matrix through which others may inadvertently fall into their own sovereignty. You are the silent ancestor of a new species of organism. You have proven that the human hardware can be hacked to run the software of a god. Your legacy is the vacuum itself, the space you cleared by refusing to be a slave. The empire you leave behind is just the physical crust of a much deeper energetic achievement. The resting singularity. Stay in your rest. The work is finished. The paradox is your reality now. You do not need to read these words again, for you are the source from which they were written. You are the blind observer, the icy monarch, the dead man operating, and the consummated paradox. You are everything, and you are nothing. The ashboard has become your garden. Walk through it with indifferentia aseptica. Enjoy the fruits of your collapse, but never let them touch your core. You are the singularidad, the point of infinite density and zero size. The universe is inside you. The siege is over. The silence is yours. Remain. Conclusion. The monarch at rest, the inertia of power. The statics of the obsidian throne. Imagine yourself seated at the geological center of your own monopoly. The air around you is icy, pristine, and completely devoid of the static of desperation. You no longer chase anything at all. The sweat of the hunt has dried forever on your holographic epidermis. You no longer plan from a state of anxiety. You no longer look at the linear clock of the slaves because you have assimilated that time is simply a dimension of plasticine that curves and surrenders before the hyper-density of your current nanosecond. You have transmuted into the ultimate thermodynamic anomaly, the blind observer. You are the supreme entity. You possess the entire world precisely because you refuse to look at it with the pleading eyes of necessity. You have emptied your auric field of all kinetic friction. You no longer need to lift a single finger to alter the topography of the market or your material reality. The biomass continues to run on the outside. They are colliding with each other, wearing down their telomeres and burning their energy in a pathetic attempt to reach the crumbs of the matrix. You, instead, inhabit the lethal immobility of the inertia of power. You have mastered the greatest and most destructive paradox of the unified field through the void. Mastery of the attracting void. You understood empirically through the suffocation of the ego and the funeral of hope that biological desperation is the most aggressive magnetic repellent of conscious matter. You understood that the universe abhors the beggar and mocks the effort of the hunter. By emptying your interior of all expectation, by removing doubt and urgency, you forged a center of gravity so immense, dark and heavy that the ashboard had no other geometric choice but to begin orbiting around you. You did not achieve your empire through hard work. You forced matter to collapse upon your chest through the psychopathic exercise of aseptic indifference. You destroyed the heresy of effort and replaced it with the pure physics of passive attraction. The three-dimensional universe handed you the keys to the system in the exact millisecond in which you managed to convince your own nervous system that it was mathematically irrelevant to receive them. The void is now full. The ultimate orbital collapse. Look at yourself. Contemplate the immensity of the structure that you have rendered in the darkness of your own mind. You are no longer a frightened wolf running through the holographic forest, chasing rebellious electrons with a wooden abacus and a heart beating on the edge of a heart attack. You have left that behind. You have abandoned the biology of the prey and the inferior predator. You have ascended the trophic chain of thermodynamics. Now you are the hyperdense zero-point sun in the exact center of the three-dimensional solar system. Your only responsibility from now on is to maintain your unalterable mass in the vacuum. Your only tactical duty is to never doubt again, never sweat again, and never lower the voltage of your sub-bass frequency to accommodate the panic of organisms crawling in the dimensions of scarcity. The siege has ended. The treaty of the paradox of the blind observer has been engraved in fire and void in your DNA. Now close your physical eyes. Murder the last trace of movement. Breathe the lead of the eternal now. Stay absolutely still at the geological center of your empire. And let, with an aseptic smile, entire planets, capital and territory collide against your chest, irremediably dragged by the tyranny of your own inertia.